Imagine standing at the foot of a structure built thousands of years ago, its stones whispering secrets in a language only the wind seems to understand. Ancient Persia wasn't just an empire of conquest and kings, it was a cradle of mysteries, a land where grand monuments served as more than symbols of power. They were living libraries carved in stone, holding layers of hidden knowledge meant to transcend time itself. These architectural marvels were designed not only to impress but to communicate, to preserve wisdom, and to challenge future generations to look closer, to listen harder, to decode what lies beneath the surface. From the sun-scorched deserts to the lush gardens of Shiraz, Persia's landscape is dotted with these enigmatic treasures. Each one tells a story, but not all stories are told outright. Some are written in symbols, encoded in geometry, whispered through acoustics, or hidden in plain sight, waiting centuries for someone with the curiosity to uncover their truth. These monuments were the work of visionary architects, poets, astronomers, and mystics who believed that true knowledge should endure, should challenge, and should reveal itself only to those willing to seek it. Today, we embark on a journey to explore 30 of these extraordinary Persian monuments, each one guarding astonishing hidden messages that have puzzled historians, inspired explorers, and captivated dreamers. Together, we'll unravel the riddles etched into ancient walls, decode the celestial alignments of forgotten temples, and listen for the echoes of philosophies meant to outlive empires. This is more than a history lesson. It's an invitation to witness how stone and spirit intertwine to create something timeless. So lean in, open your mind, and prepare to see these magnificent structures not as ruins of the past, but as living conversations with our shared human story. Our journey begins not with a whisper, but with a monumental declaration of power. High on a stone terrace against the backdrop of the Ka-i-Romat mountain lies the magnificent ghost of Persepolis. This was the ceremonial heart of an empire that stretched from the Indus River to the Nile, a place where kings were not just crowned, but where the very idea of kingship was carved into eternity. And if you listen closely to its silent stones, you'll hear the most sophisticated propaganda campaign of the ancient world. The undeniable centerpiece of this narrative is the grand double staircase leading to the Apadana, the great audience hall. Here, the genius of Darius the Great is set in stone. The reliefs are a breathtaking parade of tranquility and order, a stark contrast to the chaotic scenes of conquest favored by other empires like the Assyrians. This was a different message entirely. It wasn't about how the empire was won through bloodshed, it was about how it was run through harmony. Carved into these limestone steps are 23 delegations from every corner of the known world, each group led by a Persian or Mede courtier. Look closely, you can see the intricate details that make this more than a simple guest list. The Lydians bring intricately woven fabrics and delicate vessels. The Armenians present a powerful horse. The Ethiopians offer exotic tusks and a bewildered okapi. Every gift, every expression, every fold of clothing is a meticulously crafted symbol. This was a stone encyclopedia of the empire's diversity, a celebration of its vastness, but it was also a subtle message of control. By depicting these delegations not as conquered foes, but as willing participants in a grand, peaceful ceremony, Darius was communicating that his rule was a universal benefit. He wasn't a tyrant, he was a benefactor, a king whose divine right, granted by the god Ahura Mazda, brought order and prosperity to all peoples. The figures are all the same height, regardless of their origin, a powerful visual statement of equality under the Persian crown. The absence of any depiction of violence is itself a loud and deliberate message. The strength of the empire was so absolute, it didn't need to be stated. The peace it provided was proof enough. Hidden within this procession are even more nuanced codes. The sequence of the delegations isn't random. It follows a specific geographic order, mirroring the imperial roads and satrapies, a map frozen in time. The repetition of certain motifs, like the lotus flower, symbolizes eternal life and the divine blessing on the Achaemenid dynasty. Every chisel mark was a word in a complex language of power, designed to be read by ambassadors, priests, and nobles from across the globe, assuring them of their place in a stable, thriving, and eternal world order. Persepolis wasn't just a palace, it was a permanent press release carved for the ages, and its walls still whisper the secrets of statecraft. But the story of Persian stone carving doesn't end with the fall of the Achaemenids. Just a short journey from the silent grandeur of Persepolis lies another cliff face, one that speaks with multiple voices across the centuries. Carved into the living rock of Mount Hussein, Naqsh-e Rustam serves as a powerful and mysterious sequel, a site where two great Persian dynasties left their mark, creating a palimpsest of power and belief that archaeologists are still deciphering today. Dominating the view are four immense crosses carved high into the cliffside, the majestic tombs of Achaemenid kings like Darius the Great and Xerxes. These are not simple holes in the wall, they are architectural marvels designed to defy time and gravity. Their facades are shaped like enormous Persian crosses, a design believed to represent the entrance to the universe itself. At the center of each cross, a carved panel depicts the king standing on a platform supported by figures representing the various peoples of the empire. This imagery is a direct continuation of the propaganda we saw at Persepolis, a declaration that the king's authority is upheld by the collective strength and diversity of his subjects. Above this scene, the king is shown paying homage to the supreme deity Ahura Mazda, in a powerful fusion of the political and the divine, suggesting his rule is not just accepted by men but ordained by the gods themselves. Centuries later, the Sassanian dynasty rose to power, reclaiming the legacy of the Achaemenid Empire. They looked upon these awe-inspiring tombs of their legendary predecessors and chose this very site to inscribe their own stories of triumph and divine right. The lower sections of the cliff at Naqsh-e Rustam are covered with dramatic rock reliefs commissioned by Sassanian kings like Shapur I and Hormuzd Roman II. These are not static portraits, they are dynamic, cinematic scenes frozen in stone. One of the most famous reliefs shows the mighty Shapur I on horseback, his hand grasped by the god Ahura Mazda in a symbolic act of investiture, granting him the divine right to rule. In another breathtaking panel, Shapur is depicted in a moment of ultimate victory, towering over a defeated Roman emperor, Valerian, who kneels before him, while a third emperor, Philip the Arab, stands submissively nearby, a stunning record of a single king humbling the greatest military power of the age. These reliefs were a bold statement, directly linking the Sassanian kings to the glory of their Achaemenid forebears and proclaiming their own legendary feats for all eternity. Some researchers propose an even deeper layer of meaning hidden in the very placement of these monuments. The orientation of the Achaemenid tombs and the positioning of certain Sassanian reliefs may not be random. There is a compelling theory that the entire site functions as a massive astronomical calendar or a celestial map. The facades of the tombs are precisely aligned to catch the rising and setting sun during the equinoxes, bathing the stone crosses in a dramatic light that would have marked significant moments in the Zoroastrian religious year. Certain features in the reliefs might correspond to specific stars or constellations, anchoring the stories of kings and gods not just in history, but in the cosmos itself. This transforms Naqsh-e Rustam from a mere cemetery and victory monument into a potential observatory, a place where the cycles of heaven and the deeds of earth were forever intertwined, a hidden message written not just in stone, but in the very movement of the sun and stars. Moving from the dramatic declarations of power at Naqsh-e Rustam, our journey takes us to a place of profound stillness and understated elegance, the plains of Pasargadae. Here, standing alone against the vast sky, is a monument that speaks in a whisper rather than a shout, the tomb of Cyrus the Great. After the intricate reliefs and towering facades we've just explored, this structure is startling in its simplicity. It is a six-tiered rectangular plinth of limestone, crowned with a modest gabled chamber. There are no grand processions, no depictions of gods or conquered kings. Its power lies not in its scale or ornamentation, but in its silent, enigmatic presence. This is where the story of the Persian Empire truly began, and the architecture itself may be the most revealing message Cyrus ever left for the world. The design is an architectural mystery that has puzzled scholars for centuries. Why would the founder of the world's first superpower, a man who could command any resource, choose such a seemingly simple final resting place? The answer might be hidden in the very form he chose. The combination of the stepped plinth and the sloped roof is utterly unique in ancient Persian architecture. One compelling theory suggests this was not merely a tomb, but a symbolic representation of a Zoroastrian fire temple. The 6 steps could represent the 6 aspects of creation in Zoroastrian philosophy: sky, water, earth, plants, animals, and humanity, with the small chamber at the top symbolizing the eternal fire, the 7th element, and the presence of the divine. In this interpretation, Cyrus wasn't just buried, he was eternally united with the very essence of creation. Another perspective sees the tomb not as a temple, but as a direct and personal statement of the king's character. Historical accounts, including the writings of the Greek historian Arrian, describe how Alexander the Great, upon finding the tomb looted, was filled with respect and ordered its immediate restoration. He had read an inscription that was once on the tomb which reportedly said, "O man, I am Cyrus, who founded the empire of the Persians and was king of Asia. Grudge me not therefore this monument." Whether this inscription was real or legendary, it points to a powerful idea: Cyrus's humility. The modest scale of the structure could be a coded message that true greatness does not require ostentatious display, that a leader's connection to his people and his God is more powerful than any monument of conquest. It stands in quiet defiance of the grandeur that would follow with Darius at Persepolis, suggesting a different philosophy of power, one based on inclusion and respect rather than sheer dominance. This humility is further echoed in the wider landscape of Pasargadae. Unlike the later, highly organized ceremonial complex of Persepolis, Cyrus's capital feels more like a vast, open garden. Archaeologists believe it was home to the famous Chahar Bog, or fourfold garden, one of the earliest known examples of the Persian paradise garden. This design, a symmetrical division of space by waterways, was meant to represent a perfected, harmonious microcosm of the world. The placement of his simple tomb within this planned paradise sends a powerful message of a ruler who saw himself not as a conqueror to be feared, but as a steward of a peaceful, ordered, and beautiful world. The tomb doesn't shout his victories, it whispers his vision for humanity, a vision so enduring that it inspired not only his subjects but even the conquerors who came to venerate his memory centuries later. Leaving behind the open plains of Pasargadae, we travel even further back in time, to an era shrouded in the mists of ancient history, to encounter a structure so massive and so mysterious that it seems to defy the very landscape it was built upon. Rising from the dusty plains of Khuzestan is the colossal ziggurat of Chogha Zanbil, a breathtaking mountain of mud brick that stands as the sole surviving example of an Elamite ziggurat. This isn't just a forgotten ruin, it's a 5-story high enigma, a sacred ladder meant to bridge the earth and the heavens, and it guards its secrets within the very bricks that form its walls. Built around 1250 B.C. by the Elamite king Untashnaparisha, the entire complex was originally dedicated to the great god Inshushinak. The scale is almost incomprehensible. Imagine a central pyramid, a ziggurat, that originally soared over 170 feet into the sky, surrounded by a massive complex of temples, palaces, and tombs, all enclosed within 3 concentric walls. This was more than a temple, it was a holy city, a theological fortress designed to be the spiritual heart of the Elamite Empire. But the true mystery of Chogha Zanbil isn't just in its grand design, but in the incredible detail found on its most basic building blocks. Walk up to any of the thousands of baked bricks that still remain, and you will find them inscribed with a crisp, clear message. In the intricate wedge-shaped script of cuneiform, each brick proudly names the builder. I, Untashnaparisha, king of Anshan and Susa, I built a temple of glazed brick and dedicated it to the god Inshushinak. This was common practice, a way for a king to immortalize his piety and his achievement. But the sheer volume of these inscriptions is what makes scholars pause. We're not talking about a few foundation stones, we're talking about nearly every single brick in the entire complex. Why would a king go to such extraordinary, painstaking effort to stamp his name on what is essentially the hidden interior of a wall, a place no one was ever meant to see? This is where we move from a simple declaration into the realm of hidden messages. One compelling theory suggests these were not just labels, they were incantations. By saturating the entire structure with the king's name and his devotional purpose, each brick became a permanent prayer, a magical reinforcement of the temple's sanctity. The act of building itself was transformed into a continuous ritual, weaving a protective spell into the very fabric of the ziggurat. The name of the god, Inshushinak, invoked over and over, thousands upon thousands of times, would have created a powerful spiritual battery, charging the site with divine energy meant to last for eternity. Some researchers take this idea a step further, proposing that these inscriptions might have functioned as a form of apotropaic magic, a ritual curse designed to ward off evil. In the ancient world, a name held immense power. To inscribe the king's name and his sacred purpose on every brick could have been a way to claim the entire structure so completely that any desecrator would be defying not just a king but a god. It was a permanent warning, a divine copyright notice etched in clay, meant to terrify any future enemy or looter with the threat of supernatural retribution. The message was clear: this place belongs to the god, and to violate it is to invite a curse. The meticulous repetition also served another, more practical hidden purpose: quality control. By requiring every single brick to be inscribed with his name, King Untashnaparisha ensured an unmatched standard of production. A brickmaker couldn't cut corners or use substandard materials. His work was permanently signed. This turned a massive public works project into an act of individual accountability, guaranteeing that the ziggurat would be built to last, which astonishingly it has. Even more intriguing is the possibility that the specific arrangement of these inscribed bricks, or the patterns in which they were laid, might have held a deeper numerological or cosmological significance that we have yet to fully decipher. The ziggurat of Chogha Zanbil, therefore, is more than an archaeological site. It is a vast library of clay where every book is a brick, and every brick whispers the same powerful spell, a king's desperate and magnificent attempt to make his devotion permanent. After the silent, symbolic whispers of Pasargadae and the repetitive incantations of Chogha Zanbil, we arrive at a monument that doesn't just suggest a message, it shouts one across the millennia in 3 distinct languages. Carved into a near-vertical cliff face along an ancient caravan route in the Zagros Mountains, the Bisotun Inscription is perhaps the most audacious and successful piece of political propaganda ever created. This isn't a hidden message, it's a monumental billboard, a megalithic memoir commissioned by King Darius the Great to cement his rightful place on the throne and ensure his version of history would never be forgotten. The sheer scale of the endeavor is breathtaking. The main relief panel stands over 15 feet high and 25 feet wide, depicting a triumphant Darius with his foot on the chest of the usurper Gomata, while 9 other rebellious liar kings stand bound and roped before him. Above this scene of dominance floats the Faravaha, the symbol of the Zoroastrian god Ahura Mazda, bestowing his divine approval on the king, but the imagery is only the headline. The true body of the message is etched in the vast panels of text that surround it, the same story meticulously repeated in 3 different cuneiform scripts: Old Persian, Elamite, and Babylonian. This trilingual choice was a masterstroke of political communication, a hidden message in plain sight about the very nature of Darius's empire. He wasn't just speaking to his immediate court, he was addressing the entire known world. The Old Persian script, a relatively new invention, was a message to his Persian homeland, reinforcing his legitimacy as one of their own. The Elamite language, the administrative tongue of the former Elamite Empire, was aimed at the bureaucrats and officials who kept the imperial machinery running. And Babylonian, the lingua franca of the ancient Near East, was for the educated elite, the priests, and the merchants across his vast domains. By using all 3, Darius was proclaiming that his authority was universal, understood and accepted from the highest official to the lowliest traveler on the road below. The content of the text itself is a fascinating piece of historical spin. Darius recounts in vivid detail how he, with the aid of Ahura Mazda, single-handedly defeated the impostor Gomata and crushed a wave of rebellions across the empire. He presents himself not as a usurper, but as the restorer of the rightful Achaemenid bloodline, a hero chosen by the gods to save the kingdom from chaos. Historians now understand that the truth was likely far messier, that Darius's rise to power involved complex factional struggles, but by carving his version of events into an inaccessible mountainside, a place so high that it could never be altered or destroyed, he effectively froze his narrative in time. He wasn't just recording history, he was creating it, ensuring that his would be the only story that survived. The most profound hidden message of Bisotun, however, is one that Darius himself could never have anticipated. For centuries after the fall of the Persian Empire, the inscription remained an impenetrable mystery, its strange wedge-shaped characters baffling every traveler who passed beneath it. It was this very monument, this piece of royal bravado, that became the key to unlocking the lost languages of the ancient world. In the 19th century, the brilliant British Army officer and linguist Henry Rawlinson used the Bisotun inscription as a massive Rosetta Stone. At great personal risk, he scaled the cliff to make casts of the texts. By comparing the 3 scripts, he managed to first decipher Old Persian, and then use that knowledge to crack the code of Babylonian, which in turn opened the door to understanding the entirety of Mesopotamian civilization. In a magnificent twist of fate, Darius's boastful memoir, intended to glorify his own name, inadvertently became the voice for countless thousands of forgotten kings, merchants, and poets. His hidden message of legitimacy, carved for the gods and his subjects, became a message to future generations of scholars, granting them the ability to hear the whispers of an entire ancient world that had fallen silent. The monument, designed to proclaim one man's power, ultimately gave power back to history itself. While the towering inscriptions of Bisotun proclaimed a king's power for all to see, another form of stone storytelling flourished just a few centuries later, one that traded stark declarations for rich visual narratives. Nestled in the foothills of the Zagros Mountains near modern-day Kermanshah, the site of Tak-e-Bostan offers a breathtakingly different perspective. Here, the Sassanian kings chose not to carve words into a cliff, but to carve entire worlds into it. This is not a text to be read, but a gallery to be experienced, a vibrant, detailed, and astonishingly well-preserved time capsule from the final glorious chapter of pre-Islamic Persia. The most magnificent of these galleries is the Great Ivan, or Arch, commissioned by King Khosrow Roman II, a recess so rich with hidden meaning that every fold of clothing and every note of music tells a story. Stepping into the shade of the arch is like being granted a private audience with the king himself. The central panel depicts Khosrow's investiture, the sacred moment he receives the right to rule. But this is no simple handshake. On one side, the Zoroastrian supreme god, Ahura Mazda, offers the king the ring of kingship. On the other, the powerful water goddess Anahita presents him with a second ring. This dual endorsement is the first and most crucial hidden message. By including Anahita, Khosrow wasn't just claiming political power, he was claiming a divine mandate from the entire Zoroastrian pantheon, and specifically linking his reign to the life-giving, prosperous blessings of water, a vital commodity in the arid Persian landscape. His legitimacy was now doubly divine, unassailable, and blessed with the promise of fertility and wealth for his entire empire. Yet the true secrets of Tak-e Boston are woven into the tapestry of details surrounding this central scene. Look below the investiture panel. Here, the stone comes alive with a dynamic, almost cinematic depiction of the king on a royal hunt. This is far more than a celebration of a favorite royal pastime. It is a complex allegory for the king's role as the protector of order against the forces of chaos. Khosrow is shown twice, mounted on his legendary warhorse Shabdiz. In one sequence, he takes aim at a herd of boar in a marshland. In the next, he hunts deer in a forest. Every element is a symbol. The boar represent brute, untamed chaos, while the graceful deer might symbolize the more noble aspects of the natural world being brought under the king's harmonious control. The separation of the scenes into water and land further emphasizes the king's dominion over all realms of creation. The hidden messages extend to the very equipment and fashions on display. The intricate patterns on the king's silk robes, his elaborate crown, and the specific type of armor worn by the attendants are a priceless archive of Sassanian courtly life and military technology, details often lost in textual records. Perhaps most astonishing is the depiction of a group of musicians playing on a boat within the hunting scene. The instruments they hold, harps, lutes, and horns, are rendered with such precision that musicologists have been able to identify them and understand the role of music in royal ceremony. This small, melodic detail transforms the entire relief from a static image into a sensory experience, hinting at the sounds that would have accompanied such an event, a hidden auditory message preserved in silence for 1400 years. Perhaps the most profound coded narrative is one of unwavering stability in the face of time. Khosrow Roman II commissioned this grand arch at the very zenith of the Sassanian Empire's power and wealth, but he could not have known it would be one of the dynasty's final monumental acts. Within a few decades, the empire would fall to the Arab conquests. In this light, Tak-e Boston becomes a poignant and frozen moment of self-perception. It is a kingdom's confident vision of itself, immortalized at its peak, divinely blessed, eternally prosperous, and perfectly ordered. The hidden message is one of ultimate optimism, a belief in an everlasting reign that, while ultimately finite, would forever be captured in stone, allowing us to witness the Sassanian world not as it ended, but precisely as it wished to be remembered. Our journey now takes us to a place where architecture confronts the most profound of human mysteries, the passage from life to death. High on lonely hilltops, often overlooking bustling cities, stand the silent, circular structures known as dakma, or towers of silence. To the unfamiliar eye, they might appear as simple, open-air stone rings, perhaps ancient amphitheaters or abandoned foundations. But their true purpose and the intricate belief system they represent form one of the most powerful and poetic architectural codes of ancient Persia. These are not monuments to death, but rather carefully designed machines for the soul's final journey, their every feature a hidden message about purity, respect for nature, and the eternal cycle of life. The design principle of a dakma is starkly simple yet deeply symbolic. It is always a circular, raised platform constructed from solid stone and divided into 3 concentric rings. The bodies of the deceased were placed within these rings, men on the outer ring, women in the middle, and children in the innermost circle. This seemingly practical arrangement holds a first layer of hidden meaning, reflecting the Zoroastrian cosmological view of a structured universe, ordered and separated yet connected within a greater whole. But the most critical feature of the dakma is what it is not. It has no roof, no walls, and most importantly, no connection to the earth below. The platform is raised, often on a hilltop, and the floor is paved with stones carefully sloped towards a central pit. This entire design serves a single sacred purpose, a sky burial. This practice is where the architecture becomes a direct expression of core Zoroastrian doctrine. In the Zoroastrian faith, the four elements earth, fire, water, and air are considered sacred and must be kept pure from pollution. A dead body is considered nasu, unclean, and the process of decomposition is the ultimate form of contamination. Therefore, traditional burial in the earth or cremation by fire are seen as profound acts of sacrilege, poisoning the pure elements. The dakma provides the perfect, respectful solution. By exposing the body to the sun and to scavenging birds, primarily vultures, the remains are consumed and cleansed with breathtaking speed and efficiency. The soul is freed and the elements remain unsullied. Every architectural detail reinforces this message of reverence. The stone paving prevents any trace of decay from seeping into the sacred earth below. The central pit, lined with charcoal and sand, acts as a filter, collecting any remaining matter that is washed down by the rain, which is itself then purified by the sun and wind. Even the vultures, often misunderstood creatures, are seen as sacred agents in this process, performing a vital spiritual service. The entire structure is a beautifully efficient and ecological system, a hidden sermon on the interconnectedness of all life and the responsibility of the living to protect the purity of the natural world. The location of these towers, always on the highest available ground, sends another profound message. It places the ritual of excarnation physically closer to the sun, the representative of Ahura Mazda's divine light and wisdom. It also ensures the process is conducted away from populated areas, a practical measure of hygiene that also symbolizes the separation between the realms of the living and the dead. The soul, in Zoroastrian belief, is said to linger near the body for 3 days before departing. The elevated, open-air design of the dakma facilitates this journey, allowing the soul an unimpeded path skyward, free to begin its ascent to the Chinvat Bridge and the final judgment. The architecture, therefore, is not just a container for a ritual. It is an active participant in the soul's transition, a silent guide ensuring a respectful departure from the physical world and a safe passage into the spiritual one. The Tower of Silence stands as an ultimate testament to a philosophy that sees death not as an end, but as a transformation, and the monument itself as a final, graceful act of environmental and spiritual stewardship. Soaring over 180 feet into the sky, visible for miles across the flat Gorgon plain, stands a structure of such audacious simplicity that it seems to defy both time and physics. The Gonbad-e Qabus Tower is not a palace or a temple. It is a pure, unadorned statement in baked brick, a razor-sharp line drawn between the earth and the heavens. Built in 1006 AD as the tomb for Qabus ibn Voshmgir, a scholarly and powerful ruler from the Ziyarid dynasty, this monument is a masterpiece of early Islamic Persian architecture. But to see it as just a tomb is to miss its true purpose. This tower is a celestial beacon, a sophisticated scientific instrument, and perhaps the most elegant hidden message of cosmic authority ever constructed. The first clue to its deeper meaning is in the numbers, a code written in its very geometry. The tower rises from a 10-pointed star-shaped base, a form that is far more than decorative. This 10-pointed star is a direct reflection of the region's ancient astronomical knowledge. In the celestial observations of Persian scholars, certain significant stars and constellations were mapped using a decan system, dividing the sky into sections. The 10 points of the base are believed to correspond to these decans, essentially grounding the tower in a map of the heavens above. From this star base, the tower transforms into a perfect, unbroken cylinder, stretching upwards until it is capped by a stunning conical roof. The total height, exactly equal to the tower's diameter at its base, This 1-to-1 ratio was a deliberate mathematical choice, reflecting a pursuit of perfect harmony and balance, principles that were seen as divine. This architectural precision becomes a functional marvel when we consider the tower's relationship with the sun. The 10 triangular projections that radiate from the starbase are not merely buttresses for structural support, they are the teeth of a giant cosmic clock. Researchers and astronomers have studied how the shadow cast by the tower behaves throughout the year. At the exact moment of solar noon on the equinoxes, the 2 days of the year when day and night are of equal length, the shadow of the conical roof disappears completely. For that one precise minute, the structure achieves a state of perfect geometric equilibrium, its form untouched by shadow. This was no accident. It was an engineered event, a public and undeniable demonstration that the builder possessed an exact understanding of the solar cycle. This phenomenon transforms the tower into a giant solar calendar. The gradual movement of the shadow's length and position throughout the seasons would have allowed ancient observers to accurately mark the changing seasons, predict the arrival of crucial agricultural periods like planting and harvest, and observe important Zoroastrian and Islamic holy days that were tied to the solar and lunar cycles. The tower didn't just tell the time of day, it told the time of the year. This practical function, however, is layered with a powerful symbolic message. By aligning his own eternal resting place so perfectly with the cycles of the cosmos, Qabus ibn Voshmgir was making a profound claim. He was portraying himself not just as a political leader, but as a ruler whose authority was in harmony with the fundamental order of the universe. His power was as natural, as predictable, and as essential as the rising and setting of the sun. The monument's silent, daily interaction with sunlight became a continuous performance of his legitimacy, a hidden message declaring that his right to rule was written into the very fabric of the cosmos, ensuring his name would be remembered not for centuries, but for as long as the sun continued to traverse the sky. From the celestial precision of Gonbad-e Qabus, we journey southeast, into the heart of the Lut Desert's brutal embrace, to a place where human ambition met an unforgiving landscape and won for a time. Rising from the arid plains like a mirage made solid was Arg-e-Bam, the largest adobe structure on Earth, a sprawling citadel of sun-baked clay that was not just a fortress but an entire city. Before a devastating earthquake in 2003 shattered much of its form, Bam stood for over 2 millennia as the ultimate testament to survival. Its hidden messages were not carved in relief or written in script. They were woven into the very fabric of its existence, a complex language of urban planning that spoke of water, warfare, and community in a land where life itself was a daily act of defiance. The first and most profound lesson Bam teaches is that in the desert, water is not just a resource, it is life, it is power, it is currency, and it is divinity. The citadel's entire existence was predicated on a hidden, underground marvel, the Qanat system. Imagine a network of gently sloping tunnels, hand-dug through rock and soil for miles, tapping into distant aquifers at the foothills of the mountains. These tunnels channeled groundwater purely by gravity, delivering a continuous, life-giving flow to the surface without a single pump or engine. The genius of Bam's Qanats was their seamless integration into the city's architecture. The water would first emerge within the fortified walls of the citadel itself, the political and military heart, ensuring the rulers and their garrison would never thirst during a siege. This was a powerful hidden message of control. Whoever controlled the Qanat source held the ultimate power over the entire population. From the citadel, the water was then distributed through a meticulously planned hierarchy. It flowed next to the homes of the wealthy and the important religious structures, like the old Zoroastrian fire temple, reinforcing the social order. Finally, it reached the vast groves of date palms and citrus trees that surrounded the city, the legendary Bam Gardens that were the true economic engine of the region. This wasn't just irrigation, it was a hydraulic democracy. the allocation of water was strictly governed by a complex time-sharing system, where each farmer's turn was measured by the shadow cast by a specific stone or the draining of a water clock. The entire social contract of Bam, its laws, its economy, its very cohesion, was built upon the fair and precise distribution of this invisible underground river. The Qanats were the city's hidden circulatory system, and their quiet, constant flow was the whispered promise of continued life. But survival in such a strategic location on the Silk Road also required a robust defense, and the citadel's layout is a masterclass in defensive communication. Perched on a bedrock outcrop, its high walls and numerous watchtowers were not just for show, they were an integrated early warning system. The placement of each tower was calculated for maximum visibility across the flat desert plains. A sentinel in one tower could spot a dust cloud from an approaching caravan or an army miles away. Through a series of pre-arranged signals, perhaps mirror flashes by day or fire beacons by night, a message could be relayed from tower to tower and into the heart of the citadel in a matter of minutes. This network turned the entire fortress into a single, living organism that could see danger coming from every direction. The internal architecture continued this language of control and security. The city was divided into distinct, layered zones, each with its own message. At the very top sat the ruler's compound with its own barracks, stables, and a four-season palace designed with wind catchers to naturally cool the interior. Below, nestled against the citadel's walls, was the bustling public city with its bazaar, homes, and public baths. The message of this vertical layout was one of protection. The ruler literally watched over the people, and in return, the people were sheltered by his walls. The single, narrow, winding pathway that led from the public city up to the governor's section was another deliberate feature. It forced any potential attacker into a deadly choke point, making a direct assault nearly impossible. Every alleyway, every blind corner, every fortified gate was a silent sentence in a manual of desert warfare, stating clearly that this community was prepared, vigilant, and resilient. Perhaps the most moving hidden message of Arg-e-Bam, however, is one of profound communal interdependence. This was not a military outpost populated by soldiers alone. It was a complete, self-sustaining ecosystem. Within its walls, you found mosques and a synagogue existing side by side, evidence of the diverse traders who passed through on the Silk Road. The bazaar was not on the outskirts but protected deep within the city's heart, signaling that commerce and daily life were valued and worth defending. The homes were built with a shared architecture of thick, insulating adobe walls and domed roofs that kept out the searing heat, a uniform design that prioritized community survival over individual extravagance. The very material of the city, the mud and straw bricks, told a story of working with the environment, not against it. These bricks provided superb insulation from the desert's extreme temperatures, and when they crumbled, they simply returned to the earth from which they came, leaving almost no trace. Arg-e-Bam was a dialogue with the desert, a conversation that said, "We respect your power, we understand your rules, and we will thrive here by our collective wit and will." Its tragic partial collapse in the earthquake was a stark reminder of its fragility, but its ongoing restoration continues to whisper its timeless lessons of ingenuity and human resilience. Leaving behind the sprawling, sun-baked city of Bam, we venture into a realm of profound spiritual intimacy and architectural ingenuity. Our journey now takes us to the heart of Zoroastrian worship, to a structure designed not for grand processions or public spectacle, but for the careful, sacred custody of a single, vital element, fire. The Zoroastrian fire temples, or Hgas, represent a completely different architectural language from the monumental declarations we've seen so far. Their message is not one of imperial power, but of inner devotion, not of visibility, but of purposeful concealment. The entire design of a temple like the ancient Hga is a complex puzzle box built to solve one sacred problem: How do you shelter a flickering flame for centuries and in doing so protect the very essence of the divine? Step inside one of these temples and the first thing you notice is the deliberate dimness, the hushed atmosphere. Unlike the towering, open-air spaces of palaces or tombs, the fire temple is inward-focused, protective. The central chamber, where the eternal flame burns, is always located in the deepest, most shielded part of the complex. To reach it, one often must pass through a series of increasingly sacred spaces, a physical journey that mirrors the spiritual journey from the material world to a state of pure contemplation. This architectural progression is the first hidden message. The divine is not found in the noisy, external world, but through quiet, focused introspection. The path to God is inward. The most ingenious feature of these temples is their mastery over the elements, specifically air. The sacred fire must never be extinguished, yet it must also never be exposed to the open wind, which is seen as a polluting force. The solution is a masterpiece of passive engineering, the Chogha Zanbil or four-arch design. This structure features a central dome supported by four arches, creating a contained square space beneath it. The dome itself is not solid. It is often punctuated with carefully placed vents or a central opening. This design creates a sophisticated convection current. Hot air from the fire rises and escapes through the top, drawing in a gentle, controlled stream of fresh air from the low, shielded doorways or specialized channels in the walls. This constant, gentle breath of air feeds the flame just enough oxygen to sustain it, without allowing a gust to snuff it out or blow sparks. The architecture itself breathes for the fire, a silent, eternal guardian. This meticulous protection sends a powerful theological message. Fire, in Zoroastrianism, is not merely a symbol of Ahura Mazda. It is his supreme agent on earth, the embodiment of his divine light, wisdom, and purifying energy. It is the medium through which prayers are carried upward to the Creator. By building a temple that so perfectly cradles and sustains this flame, the architects were asserting that the divine presence, while invisible and intangible, is the most real and enduring force in the universe. It requires constant care and the utmost respect, but if tended to properly, it will never fail. The enduring flame is a testament to the enduring covenant between Ahura Mazda and his followers. The temple's design screams that this relationship is fragile yet eternal, vulnerable yet ultimately unquenchable. The concealment of the flame from public view is another layer of this coded message. Only ordained priests were permitted to see the highest grade of fire, the Atash Borum, which is composed of 16 different types of fire gathered from various sources, including lightning, a king's hearth, and a tradesman's furnace. This amalgamation represents the entire community. By hiding this unified flame from direct view, the faith communicates that the divine essence is too pure, too powerful, to be gazed upon directly by the unprepared. Worshippers pray in the outer chambers, facing the light that emanates from the inner sanctuary, a physical manifestation of the belief that we can approach the divine, reflect its light, and be guided by it, but we can never fully comprehend its core nature. The fire temple, therefore, is the ultimate architectural expression of a faith built on the preservation of sacred knowledge. It is a vault for the most precious resource of all, a direct connection to the eternal, a spark of the infinite, carefully nurtured against the winds of time and turmoil. Yet the most compelling hidden message is not found in the shared reverence, but in the shrine's most striking architectural feature, its extraordinary, elongated dome. In a land renowned for the perfect, soaring hemispheres of its Islamic architecture, the Tomb of Daniel breaks all the rules. Its dome is not a balanced half-sphere but a tall, conical, almost needle-like structure stretching dramatically toward the heavens. This is a profound architectural anomaly, a clear and intentional deviation from the norm that demands an explanation. One of the most powerful interpretations is that this unique form is a direct, three-dimensional representation of Daniel's own prophecies, a stone sermon pointing toward the promise of resurrection. The Book of Daniel contains some of the most vivid and apocalyptic visions in the Hebrew Scriptures, including the famous prophecy of the resurrection of the dead. Multitudes who sleep in the dust of the earth will awake, some to everlasting life, others to shame and everlasting contempt. The architects of the shrine, deeply versed in these texts, may have sought to give this promise a physical form. The towering, skyward thrust of the dome becomes a powerful symbol of the soul's ascent, a visual prayer for the prophet's own awakening. It doesn't just house a body, it actively anticipates its liberation, acting as a monumental conduit between the dust of the earth and the eternity of the heavens. This design transforms the entire structure from a passive container of remains into an active participant in the eschatological drama, a permanent expression of hope frozen in brick and mortar. This interpretation is further supported by the shrine's intricate interior layout. The tomb itself is housed in an inner sanctum deep within the structure, while the elongated dome above acts as a spiritual channel. The effect for a visitor is powerful. One stands in a space that feels both grounded in history and dynamically connected to the infinite above. This vertical emphasis is a stark contrast to the more horizontal, earth-bound focus of many other mausoleums. It's a design that doesn't ask you to look around at the world, but to look up beyond it. The hidden message is one of transcendence, a belief that the ultimate destination is not of this earth, and the architecture serves as a literal and figurative launching point for that final, glorious journey. Picture this: a lone traveler caked in the dust of 1,000 miles, squints against the setting sun. Ahead, the horizon holds nothing but the vast, empty expanse of the Silk Road. Then a shape emerges, a fortified wall, a single gate, a promise of shelter. This is a caravanserai, and to that exhausted traveler, it wasn't just a building, it was an oasis of life, a beacon of civilization in the wilderness. These structures, dotting the trade routes from China to the Mediterranean, were the vital nodes in a global network, and their architecture spoke a silent, universal language of safety, trust, and shared humanity that everyone from a Chinese silk merchant to an Italian spice trader could understand. The design of a caravanserai was so standardized it became a form of non-verbal communication in itself. You could find one every 25 or 30 miles, a day's journey for a loaded caravan. Their form was always reassuringly familiar, a massive, thick, windowless outer wall, often square or rectangular, with a single, heavy, defensible gate. This formidable exterior sent the first and most crucial hidden message: security. In the lawless stretches between empires, this was a fortress. Its high walls and single entrance were a clear statement to bandits that the people and wealth inside were protected. But to the legitimate traveler, that same imposing gate was a promise. Once it swung shut behind you, you were safe. You could sleep without fear, your goods were secure, and your animals were sheltered. The architecture managed to say, "Keep out" and "Come in" simultaneously, a brilliant feat of nonverbal communication. Step through that gate and the message changed entirely. You entered a massive, open courtyard bustling with activity. This central space was the heart of the caravanserai's social and commercial function. Here, the hidden language was one of community and equality. Every traveler, regardless of their origin, religion, or social status, had access to the same basic amenities. Around the perimeter of the courtyard were identical, sparsely furnished rooms, or H1s, opening directly onto the shared space. This design enforced a powerful, unspoken rule of equitable treatment. A Persian nobleman and a Mongol herder might have rooms right next to each other. There were no VIP suites. This architectural democracy fostered an environment where everyone was, for a night, in the same boat. It broke down barriers and forced interaction, making the caravanserai one of history's earliest and most effective engines of multicultural exchange. The courtyard itself was a stage for this exchange. Here, merchants would unpack their goods not just for storage but for inspection and trade. deals were struck between people who shared no common language, using the universal metrics of weights, measures, and the gleam of silver coins. The very act of all eating together, sharing food cooked over communal fires, and watering their animals side by side in the central trough created bonds of shared experience. Stories were exchanged, news from distant capitals was passed along, and innovations in science, medicine, and art traveled faster than any single traveler ever could. The caravanserai was a cultural and information router, and its open-plan design was the hardware that made that software of ideas run smoothly. Beneath this surface-level hospitality ran a deeper, more rigid code of conduct, a shared commercial law that was as binding as any emperor's decree. The safety offered wasn't just physical, it was financial. The caravanserai's manager, often appointed by the regional governor, acted as a neutral arbiter. His authority to guarantee the weight of coins, to bear witness to contracts, and to mediate disputes was respected by all. This system created an environment of incredible trust. A merchant could advance goods to a partner he'd never see again for months, confident that the network of caravanserais and the reputation they upheld would ensure the debt was honored. The structure itself, as a government-sanctioned institution, was the physical embodiment of that guarantee. Its permanence, built in stone and brick, was a promise that the rules of commerce would endure, creating a stable framework that allowed risk and reward to flourish across continents. Perhaps the most profound hidden message was one of sheer human optimism. Building and maintaining these way stations was incredibly expensive, requiring constant upkeep and a small army of cooks, guards, and stable hands. They were not built for profit in the traditional sense. They were built as a public good, often financed by kings, queens, and wealthy philanthropists as a form of charity or waqf. Their existence was a monumental bet on the future, a belief that trade would continue, that people would keep moving, and that the world would remain connected. Each caravanserai was a vote of confidence in the very idea of civilization, a declaration that the dangers of the desert were worth braving for the rewards of connection. They stand today as ruins not of failure but of success, their empty courtyards echoing with the ghosts of countless conversations that, brick by brick and mile by mile, built the modern world. Yet if the grand caravanserais were way stations for the body, our next destination served as a way station for the soul, a place where the very idea of faith was continuously built, rebuilt, and reimagined across 1,000 years. We arrive now at the beating heart of Isfahan, at a structure so layered with history that it feels less like a single building and more like a living, breathing timeline carved in brick and tile. The Jame Mosque of Isfahan is not a monument to one era or one ruler. It is an architectural palimpsest, a sacred manuscript where generations scraped away just enough of the past to inscribe their own present, leaving behind a dazzling puzzle of competing visions and hidden theological arguments. To step into its vast courtyard is to embark on a journey through time itself. Unlike the unified, singular vision of Persepolis or the Sassanian reliefs, the Jame Mosque's genius lies in its glorious, seemingly chaotic juxtaposition. Your eye is pulled in a dozen different directions, each view telling a different chapter of the story. This is not chaos, however, it is a deliberate and profound accumulation. The hidden message of the Jame Mosque is that faith is not static, that political power shifts, and that artistic expression evolves, but the sanctuary endures by embracing them all. The story begins in the 8th century, just after the Arab conquests. The original structure was a simple, pragmatic Arab hypostyle hall, a vast horizontal prayer space supported by endless rows of brick columns, much like a forest of trees holding up a flat roof. This design was a direct import from the early Islamic centers of Medina and Damascus, a clear architectural statement that this new Persian province was now part of a wider Arab caliphate. Its message was one of unity and conformity under a new religious and political order. The space was democratic and functional, designed to accommodate a growing congregation without hierarchical distinction, focusing the mind purely on the prayer leader. It was faith in its most fundamental, unadorned form. Then came the Seljuks in the 11th century, a Turkic dynasty bursting with confidence. They looked at the sprawling, horizontal mosque and saw an opportunity for a monumental declaration. Their innovation was vertical. They introduced the four-iwan courtyard, a design that would become the blueprint for Persian mosque architecture for centuries. An iwan is a massive vaulted hall open on one side to a courtyard. By placing one of these grand, soaring portals on each side of the central square, the Seljuks imposed a powerful new order on the space. But their true masterpiece was the construction of two colossal domed chambers behind the Qibla Iwan, the one pointing toward Mecca. The first dome, built by the renowned vizier Nizam al-Mulk for the Sunni congregation, is a marvel of mathematical and spiritual engineering. From the outside, it appears as a simple, elegant hemisphere, but step inside and the hidden message reveals itself in breathtaking fashion. The interior dome is not a smooth hemisphere. It is a complex, 28-ribbed structure that seems to swirl upward like a whirlpool, drawing your eye and your spirit inexorably toward the apex. This was more than decoration. It was a symbolic representation of the dome of heaven, a physical manifestation of the divine order of the universe as understood by Sunni theology. The precise geometry, the repetition of patterns, everything speaks of a cosmos that is rational, ordered, and knowable through faith and intellect. Just a few decades later, a rival vizier, Taj al-Mulk, commissioned a second, smaller domed chamber on the opposite side of the courtyard. Often called the perfect dome for its impossible mathematical elegance and seemingly weightless proportions, this structure is widely believed to have been built for the Shia community. The hidden message here is one of exquisite competition. The two domes, facing each other across the courtyard, became a silent, stone dialogue between two interpretations of Islam, each claiming architectural and spiritual supremacy through sheer beauty and engineering prowess. The Seljuk sultans, by allowing both, were making a sophisticated political statement. Their empire was strong enough to contain and balance these powerful theological forces within a single, unified house of worship. Centuries later, the Safavid dynasty arrived, shifting Persia firmly into the Shia fold and transforming Isfahan into a glorious capital. Their contribution to the mosque was not in structural innovation, but in breathtaking surface decoration. They covered the ancient brickwork of the Seljuks in a kaleidoscopic skin of polychrome tiles, intricate calligraphy, and mesmerizing floral motifs. The hidden message of this dazzling makeover was one of soft power and cultural confidence. The Safavids didn't need to build a new dome to assert their authority. They simply enveloped the old ones, claiming the entire history of the mosque for their own narrative. The intricate tilework, much of which quotes verses from the Quran and the teachings of Shia imams, effectively rewrapped the past in a new theological package. It declared that while the structure may have been built by Sunnis, its soul now belonged to Shiism, and its beauty was a reflection of Safavid piety and patronage. This endless process of addition and modification makes the Jame Mosque a living museum of architectural rhetoric. A Seljuk brick column stands mere feet from a Safavid tiled Iwan, which leans against a Mongol-era minaret. Each addition is a coded statement about the priorities of its time. The Seljuks emphasized monumental scale and cosmic order. The Mongols left their mark with incredibly delicate stucco ornamentation inside the prayer halls, and the Safavids showcased worldly splendor and theological clarity. The mosque's greatest hidden message is its resilience and adaptability. It never became a frozen relic. It was always a work in progress, a conversation across centuries where each dynasty respectfully added its own voice without entirely erasing the ones that came before. It stands as a powerful testament to the idea that true sanctuary is not about purity of style, but about the continuous, collective act of finding meaning and beauty in a changing world. After a journey through sprawling desert fortresses and silent celestial towers, we find ourselves stepping into a space of exquisite artistry and intimate sensory delight. High above the majestic Naqsh-e Square in Isfahan, behind the deceptively simple brick facade of the Qapu Palace, lies a room that seems to defy the very nature of stone and plaster. This is the famous music room, or the sound room, and it represents one of the most sophisticated and beautiful hidden messages in all of Persian architecture, a message not meant for the eyes but for the ears and the soul. The Qapu Palace itself, the grand royal residence of the Safavid Shahs, was a gateway to the complex of palaces and gardens that lay behind it. Its name meaning lofty gate, it was a symbol of power and prestige. But the sixth-floor music room, added during the reign of Shah Abbas II, reveals a different dimension of Safavid power, not military might or political control, but cultural supremacy and a profound understanding of the science of beauty. As you enter, your eye is immediately overwhelmed by a breathtaking cascade of intricate stucco work. The entire ceiling and walls are covered in a mesmerizing array of deep, three-dimensional niches, each one shaped like a vase, a vessel, or a variety of stringed instruments like harps and lutes. For centuries, visitors assumed this was purely an elaborate decorative scheme, a celebration of the courtly arts frozen in plaster. But recent studies by acoustics engineers and historians have revealed a far more brilliant and intentional design. These forms are not mere representations, they are highly functional acoustic instruments carved directly into the architecture itself. Each unique shape, with its specific depth, curvature, and opening, was meticulously designed to interact with sound waves in a precise way. The vases, with their narrow necks and rounded bodies, act as Helmholtz resonators, a principle of physics that wouldn't be formally defined in the West for another 2 centuries. These resonators are tuned to absorb specific, undesirable sound frequencies, particularly the muddiness of mid-range tones and the harshness of high-frequency echoes that would otherwise bounce chaotically around a hard, rectangular room. Simultaneously, the shapes modeled after string instruments, with their sympathetic curves and hollow cavities, were designed to capture, amplify, and gently prolong the desirable frequencies of the music played within the room. A note plucked on a tar or a santur would not simply fade into the air. It would be caught by these plaster instruments, its essence held for a fraction of a second longer, its tone warmed and enriched before being released back into the room. The overall effect is that of a giant, invisible musical ensemble built into the walls, playing in perfect, silent harmony with the human musicians. This created a soundscape of unparalleled clarity and warmth, where every subtle nuance of a melody or the softest inflection of a poet's voice could be heard with perfect fidelity by the Shah and his privileged guests. This architectural marvel transforms our understanding of the Safavid court. It was not merely a place of lavish entertainment, it was a sanctuary for the highest artistic expression, an environment engineered for pure auditory perfection. The hidden message here is one of deep, intellectual patronage. It proclaims that the Safavid Shahs valued music and poetry so highly that they commissioned their greatest architects to become partners in the performance, to build a room that was itself an active participant in the creation of beauty. The music room becomes a metaphor for the ideal Safavid state, a harmonious society where every element, from the bricks in the walls to the artists in the court, works in concert to create something greater than the sum of its parts, a resonant, beautiful, and perfectly ordered whole. Spanning the life-giving waters of the Zayandeh River with breathtaking grace, the 33 Bridge, or COC Pol, presents itself as a masterpiece of Safavid elegance. At first glance, it appears to be a quintessential symbol of Persian architectural beauty, a 400-foot-long gallery of perfectly proportioned arches, their reflections doubling their grandeur in the river below. It's easy to see it as a serene monument from a more poetic age, but to view it only as a beautiful relic is to miss its true genius entirely. This bridge was never just a way to cross the water. It was the very heart of Safavid civic engineering, a multi-talented instrument of control, community, and hidden hydraulic power, all disguised as a work of art. The name itself, Coc Pol, meaning the Bridge of 33, has long sparked the imagination of historians and spiritual seekers. The number 33 resonates deeply across cultures and faiths. In Christianity, it is the number of years Christ lived on earth. In the ancient Zoroastrian tradition that preceded Islam in Persia, there were 33 major deities or yazatas in the celestial hierarchy. It is a profoundly tempting connection to make that Shah Abbas the Great, a ruler known for his piety and his strategic religious tolerance, might have encoded a message of interfaith harmony or divine numerology into the very foundation of his greatest public work. This symbolic interpretation adds a layer of mystical allure, suggesting the bridge as a silent prayer, a stone suture connecting different worlds of belief across the flowing river of time. While these spiritual connections are captivating, the bridge's most astonishing secrets are not mystical, but magnificently practical. The true hidden message of Coc Pol is one of unparalleled engineering intelligence, and it reveals itself in the bridge's relationship with the water it crosses. The Zayandeh River, whose name means life-giving river, was the sole source of sustenance for Isfahan and its surrounding paradise gardens. Its flow, however, was not consistent. It could be a gentle stream in dry seasons and a raging torrent during spring melt. The Safavid engineers needed to manage this vital yet unpredictable resource, and they designed the bridge to be the key instrument in that management system. The 33 arches are not merely decorative, they are a sophisticated hydraulic control mechanism. The pillars supporting them are not simple columns. They are massive, boat-shaped structures called cutwaters that are pointed upstream. This design is a masterstroke of fluid dynamics. When the river swelled with meltwater from the mountains, these pointed piers would seamlessly slice through the oncoming current, minimizing resistance and preventing the destructive force of the water from undermining the bridge's foundation. But the genius goes even deeper. The spacing between these pillars was calculated with incredible precision. During periods of normal flow, water would pass through freely. During floods, the structure would intentionally cause the water to back up slightly upstream, effectively functioning as a weir or a low dam. This deliberate, temporary damming action served multiple crucial purposes. It helped to regulate the water level directly through the city center, preventing the river from overflowing its banks and flooding the lush gardens and neighborhoods that lined its shores. More importantly, it allowed for the controlled diversion of water into the many irrigation canals or maddies that fed the entire agricultural and urban network of Isfahan. The bridge acted as a massive stone tap managed by the state, ensuring the equitable and efficient distribution of the region's most precious resource. The hidden message here was one of absolute control over nature itself, a declaration that the Safavid state could not only create beauty, but could also harness the elemental forces of the planet to sustain its civilization. Beyond its role as a hydraulic regulator, Coc Pol was designed as the ultimate social space, a testament to the Safavid understanding of civic life. This was a bridge built for lingering, not just for crossing. Its wide, vaulted pathway is flanked by high walls, creating a sheltered promenade safe from the elements and the gaze of the outside world. At the center of the bridge, two larger, vaulted pavilions project out over the water, offering breathtaking panoramic views. These were not accidental features, they were carefully planned social theaters. In the cool of the evening, the bridge would transform into the most fashionable street in all of Isfahan. The elite of the city would stroll along its length, seeing and being seen, their conversations accompanied by the soothing sound of the water flowing beneath them. Storytellers would gather crowds, merchants would sell refreshments, and poets would find inspiration in the reflective surface of the river. The design of the bridge, with its segmented arches and recessed alcoves, created natural pockets of privacy within a very public space, allowing for intimate conversations amidst the bustling crowd. This architectural encouragement of social interaction sent a powerful message about the Safavid ideal of society, a harmonious, prosperous community where art, commerce, and conversation could flourish under the benevolent and absolute control of the state. The bridge was a civic living room, a democratic stage where every level of society, from the nobleman to the water seller, played a part in the daily performance of urban life. In its graceful arches, we find the complete vision of Shah Abbas, a vision where utility and beauty, power and poetry, and nature and civilization were not opposing forces, but partners in a perfectly engineered harmony. Stepping out of the engineered civic space of Isfahan's bridges, we journey deeper into the heart of the Iranian plateau, to a city that seems to have been sculpted not from clay, but from the very air itself. Welcome to Yazd, a mesmerizing sea of sun-dried brick rising from the endless desert, where survival for millennia has depended on one thing: a profound, intimate conversation with the wind. And presiding over this conversation are the city's most iconic and enigmatic citizens, the Badgers or wind catchers. These towering, chimney-like structures are far more than decorative architecture. They are a silent, sophisticated language of thermal science, a code of ancient sustainability written against the sky, each one a masterpiece of environmental engineering that has provided natural air conditioning for over 2,000 years. To understand their hidden message, you must first understand the problem they were built to solve. The desert is a place of extreme scorching, unbearable heat by day, and often surprisingly cold temperatures at night. For centuries, the people of Yazd lived in underground dwellings to escape the heat, but this meant living in darkness. The wind catcher was the brilliant solution that brought them into the light, allowing them to build a city above ground by mastering the microclimates of the desert. Each badger is a carefully calibrated machine with no moving parts, designed to do one thing with flawless efficiency: harness the slightest breeze and transform it into a cooling, life-sustaining force. The primary code of the wind catcher is written in its orientation, the direction its open face points. This is not a random choice. It is a precise calculation based on generations of accumulated meteorological knowledge. Yazd is blessed with two primary wind currents: the cool, dry northern winds and the hot, dusty southern winds. A skilled architect would always orient the wind catchers opening directly into the path of the prevailing cool wind. The structure itself becomes a compass, a permanent, fixed aspiration towards comfort, but the design also accounts for the undesirable southern winds. Many badgers feature angled baffles or cleverly placed secondary openings that actually deflect the hot wind, preventing it from entering the building while still allowing for air circulation. This selective capture is the first layer of the code, a deep understanding that not all wind is equal and that true comfort comes from discernment. Once captured, the wind is guided down a central shaft into the heart of the building below. But here lies the second and perhaps most ingenious part of the code: integration with another ancient Persian invention, the qanat. These underground aqueducts channeled cold water from distant mountain aquifers, and the wind catcher shaft was often designed to direct the air flow directly over the surface of this open water channel within the building's underground cellar or sarhad. As the dry desert air passes over the cool, evaporating water, it is instantly chilled and humidified. This process, known as evaporative cooling, can drop the air temperature by a staggering 10 to 15 degrees Celsius in an instant. The now cool, moist air is then funneled into the living quarters, while the hot, stale air inside the building is simultaneously drawn up and out through other vents, creating a continuous, self-regulating cycle of refreshment. The wind catcher and the qanat are a single, integrated system. One cannot perform its miracle without the other. This partnership is a hidden message of interdependence, a lesson that the most elegant solutions often come from working with multiple elements of the natural world in concert. The internal design of the shafts holds further nuance. Some of the most elaborate badges, particularly those in grand houses or public buildings like caravanserais and ice houses, feature multiple internal shafts. This allows a single tower to serve several rooms simultaneously, with dampers and vents that let occupants control the flow of air to different parts of the house, a form of ancient analog climate control zoning. The size and height of the tower are also a code. A taller badger can capture faster, more consistent winds from higher above the ground, making it more effective. The number of openings on a single tower can also vary. Four-sided badgers can capture wind from any direction, while one-sided ones are highly specialized for a specific wind current. The architecture itself is a direct reflection of the owner's wealth, the building's function, and the specific microclimate of its location. Beyond the sheer physics, the wind catchers carry a deeper cultural message. Their presence on the skyline of Yazd created a unique urban identity, a city that literally breathes. They stand as a permanent testament to a philosophy that is both practical and profoundly spiritual, a philosophy of adaptation rather than domination. Instead of trying to conquer the harsh desert environment with massive consumption of energy, the architects of Yazd chose to listen to it, to learn its rhythms, and to collaborate with it. The wind catcher is a symbol of humility and intelligence, demonstrating that human ingenuity can create comfort not by fighting nature, but by understanding and harnessing its inherent patterns. In an age of climate crisis and energy scarcity, these silent sentinels of Yazd offer a powerful, timeless message of sustainable wisdom, a code of survival written in brick and wind that is more relevant today than ever before. Yet after the silent, breath-powered intelligence of the wind catchers of Yazd, we are drawn to a place where light itself becomes the architect, the artist, and the divine messenger. Nestled in the ancient city of Shiraz, a city synonymous with poetry, gardens, and nightingales, stands a monument that seems to have been spun from sugar and rainbows. From the outside, the Nasir al-Mulk Mosque presents a fairly traditional, charming facade of intricate pink tilework, beautiful, to be sure, but offering little hint of the miracle that occurs within its walls each and every morning. To step across its threshold at dawn, however, is to step out of the mundane world and into a living kaleidoscope, a space where architecture surrenders to ephemeral artistry, and where the hidden message is not carved in stone, but painted in ever-shifting beams of luminous color. The moment you enter the winter prayer hall, the world outside ceases to exist. The entire southern wall is not a wall at all, but a vast, intricate canvas of stained glass, one of the most extensive and exquisite ever created in Persian architecture. As the first rays of the sun crest the nearby buildings, they stream through these panels and the magic begins. The floor, the famously iconic Persian carpets, the towering, intricately carved pillars, and the vaulted ceiling are suddenly awash in a swirling, dancing ballet of light. Brilliant pools of ruby red, sapphire blue, emerald green, and golden yellow glide and shift across the space, intertwining and separating in a silent, hypnotic performance. This is the mosque's famous daily light show, and to witness it is to understand that this is not decoration. It is devotion made visible, a theological argument expressed not in words but in wavelength and wonder. The common nickname, the Pink Mosque, comes from the dominant rose-colored tiles that cover its exterior and parts of its interior, a tribute to the abundance of flowers in Shiraz. But the true heart of its message is multicolored and transient. The choice of stained glass for a mosque in a predominantly sunny climate was a radical and deeply intentional architectural decision. In most Islamic sacred spaces, light is often filtered through lattices or reflected off complex geometric patterns to symbolize the divine light of God being broken down into a form the human mind can perceive. Nasir al-Mulk takes this principle to its most sublime conclusion. Here, pure, white sunlight is not just broken down, but is transformed into its constituent spectral colors, each hue carrying its own symbolic weight in Islamic and Persian mystical tradition. The vibrant reds that splash across the carpets are often associated with life, vitality, and divine love, the fierce, passionate love of the seeker for the Creator. The calming, celestial blues evoke the heavens' truth and the infinite nature of the divine, a reminder of the vastness beyond our earthly concerns. The greens, a color deeply sacred in Islam, represent nature, paradise, and the eternal renewal promised to the faithful. The glowing yellows and golds symbolize wisdom, the light of God itself, and the enlightenment that comes from spiritual pursuit. Together, this daily performance is a map of the spiritual journey, from the passionate seeking of the heart to the tranquil wisdom of the soul that has found its connection to the divine. This leads us to the most profound hidden message of the mosque, the philosophy of impermanence. Unlike the eternal stone declarations of Persepolis or the enduring brick of Gonbad-e Qabus, the beauty of Nasir al-Mulk is fleetingly perfect. The precise pattern of light on the floor at 8:14 in the morning will never, ever be repeated. The alignment of a blue rhombus of light with a specific flower in the carpet is a unique event in the history of the universe, experienced only by those present in that exact moment. This is a powerful architectural lesson in the Islamic concept of fana, or impermanence, the idea that all of creation is transient except for God. The mosque itself is permanent, but its most breathtaking aspect is not. It forces the worshipper to be present, to be mindful, to appreciate the divine beauty that is available right now, in this moment, for it will be gone in the next. It is a sermon on the preciousness of the present, a reminder that glimpses of paradise are not just a reward in the afterlife, but are available to all who pause to truly see the world around them. Therefore, the mosque becomes a great equalizer. The experience of this radiant beauty is not reserved for scholars, priests, or the wealthy. It is available to anyone who chooses to enter and sit quietly on the carpet. A foreign tourist, a local merchant, a devout elder at prayer, all are bathed in the same transcendent light. This universal access is a silent but powerful theological statement that divine grace and beauty are not earned through status or knowledge, but are a free gift available to all who seek it, an everyday miracle that requires only the willingness to step out of the shadows and into the light. The Nasir al-Mulk Mosque does not seek to overwhelm with scale or intimidate with power. It invites, it enchants, and it reveals its deepest secrets not through inscriptions, but through illumination, teaching that the divine is not a distant king but a brilliant, loving light that wishes to dance with us if only we have the eyes to see it. Beneath the grand staircases and towering columns of Persepolis, hidden from the eyes of ambassadors and nobles, lies one of the most intimate and revealing secrets of the Achaemenid kings. While the world above echoed with the footsteps of a global empire, the empire's foundations held a silent, sacred deposit, a message sealed in precious metal for the gods and the far future. Archaeologists, carefully excavating the corners of palaces and temples, have unearthed these extraordinary treasures, small, carefully crafted boxes of stone containing miniature foundation tablets, meticulously inscribed on plaques of pure gold and silver. These were not meant for mortal admiration. They were the most private and powerful of royal communications, hidden deep within the stone to last until the end of time. The act of depositing these tablets was a profound ritual, a final and crucial step in the consecration of a great building. Imagine the scene. The construction is complete, the final stone is laid, and in a private ceremony, the king or his highest priests would descend to the very cornerstone of the structure. There, in a small, purpose-built cavity, they would place a stone or metal box. Inside, nestled perhaps on a bed of crushed lapis lazuli or other sacred materials, would be the tablets themselves. The choice of gold and silver was far from arbitrary. These were not just durable metals, they were divine substances. Gold, incorruptible and shining like the sun, was associated with the divine majesty of Ahura Mazda and the heavenly realm. Silver, with its cool, lunar glow, represented the earthly domain and the power of the waters. Together, they symbolized the king's dominion over the entire cosmos, from the highest heavens to the deepest earth. This small cache was a symbolic offering of the world itself, given back to the earth to secure divine favor. The message inscribed upon them, though short, was incredibly potent. Written in the elegant wedge-shaped script of cuneiform, a typical inscription would read something like, "I am Darius, the great king, king of kings, king of lands, son of Histasps and Achaemenid. By the favor of Ahura Mazda, I built this palace." This simple statement is a masterclass in layered communication. On one level, it is a direct prayer and an act of humility. The king acknowledges that his power to build, to rule, and even to exist comes not from his own might, but solely through the favor, or Kayachvarina, of the supreme deity Ahura Mazda. It is a plea for continued protection and blessing, a request that the god watch over this building and the dynasty it represents. But there is another, more assertive layer to this message. In stating his name and his titulature, King of Kings, King of Lands, Darius is not just introducing himself to a god who presumably already knows him. He is performing an act of eternal branding. He is staking a claim, asserting his legitimacy and his ownership over this place in the most permanent way imaginable. He is saying, "This is mine, I built it, remember me." This was a crucial piece of political propaganda aimed at a very specific audience, the future. The Achaemenids were intensely aware of the passage of time and the rise and fall of empires. They had seen the ruins of Elamite and Assyrian cities. By burying these inscriptions, they were sending a message to any future ruler, conqueror, or archaeologist who might one day dig up these foundations. They were ensuring that no matter who occupied the land, no matter how much time passed, the name of Darius would endure, and his right to have built there would be incontrovertible. It was the ultimate historical copyright. This practice transforms our understanding of these monumental sites. We are used to seeing them as expressions of power meant for the living, but the foundation tablets reveal they were also conversations with eternity. Every grand column at Persepolis, every vast hall, is literally underpinned by this quiet, confident assertion of divinely ordained right. The public reliefs showed the empire's diverse subjects willingly bringing tribute. The foundation tablets explained why they should, because the king ruled with the mandate of heaven itself. It was a hidden anchor for the entire visible spectacle of power, a spiritual keystone without which the physical structure was considered incomplete. In these small, secret caches, we find the essence of Achaemenid kingship, a powerful blend of profound piety and calculated political savvy, all sealed in gold and silver, whispering from the dust to ensure a king's name would never truly be forgotten. Rising from the arid plain just a few hundred feet from the majestic royal tombs of Naqsh-e Rustam stands a structure that has confounded archaeologists and historians for centuries. The Cube of Zoroaster is a perfect square tower of gleaming white limestone, standing 40 feet high with a single, inaccessible door high above the ground. It is a building that seems to refuse explanation, a stark, windowless enigma that offers no obvious clues to its original purpose. Unlike the dramatic reliefs and grand tombs that surround it, the cube communicates through its sheer, silent geometry, a puzzle box from the Achaemenid era that seems to defy the very passage of time. For generations, the primary debate has centered on what this perfect cube was actually built for. One compelling theory suggests it was a sacred fire sanctuary, a fire temple where an eternal flame would have been housed and protected. Its elevated door would have kept the sacred element safe from profane access and desert floods, while its solid stone construction would have contained the heat and smoke. Others propose it was a royal treasury, a secure vault for the most precious ritual objects of the Achaemenid kings, perhaps even holding the original ceremonial robes and regalia used in the nearby tombs. A more recent interpretation posits that it might have been a sophisticated astronomical observatory, its precise alignments tracking the movements of the sun and stars for both religious and calendrical purposes. The truth is, we may never know for certain, but this very mystery is part of its power. It stands as a permanent question mark, reminding us that for all we understand about ancient Persia, profound secrets still remain. However, if the Achaemenids left the cube's purpose a secret, the Sassanian kings who came centuries later saw its imposing, ancient presence as the perfect canvas for their own historical proclamation. The most direct, hidden messages on the cube are not from its builders but from its admirers. Carved directly into its polished walls are three monumental trilingual inscriptions commissioned by the great Sassanian Shah Shapur I. Written in Greek, Parthian, and Middle Persian, these texts are a masterclass in political rhetoric, designed to be read by the widest possible audience across the known world. The content of these inscriptions is a breathtaking boast of military triumph. Shapur details, in stark and proud terms, his stunning victories over not one but 3 Roman emperors. He recounts how he defeated and killed the Emperor Gordian III, how he forced Philip the Arab to pay an enormous ransom and become a tributary vassal, and perhaps most humiliatingly for Rome, how he captured the Emperor Valerian alive, holding him prisoner for the rest of his life. This was an unprecedented catastrophe for the Roman Empire, and Shapur ensures it is recorded for eternity. But these are not just dry military reports. The language is vivid and grandiose, portraying Shapur as an unstoppable force of destiny, a ruler favored by the gods to humble the greatest superpower of the age. The true hidden genius of this act, however, lies in the location Shapur chose for this boast. By inscribing his victories on this ancient, mysterious Achaemenid structure, he was doing something far more sophisticated than just recording history. He was consciously and deliberately claiming the legacy of the First Persian Empire. The cube, already ancient in Shapur's time, represented a direct, tangible link to Cyrus and Darius. By adding his own narrative to its walls, Shapur was visually and symbolically stitching his own dynasty into that glorious past. He was presenting himself not as a new kind of ruler, but as the rightful heir to the Achaemenid King of Kings, a restorer of Persian glory after centuries of Greek and Parthian rule. The cube became a permanent piece of evidence in the Sassanian claim to legitimate sovereignty, a stone-made argument that their empire was a restoration of the natural order. This act of historical grafting transforms the cube of Zoroaster into a unique palimpsest of power. Its silent, Achaemenid form represents one layer of mystery, the foundational strength and spiritual depth of ancient Persia. The Sassanian inscriptions layered on top represent another, the military might and political savvy of a renewed empire. Together, they create a dialogue across 1,000 years of history. The monument thus tells 2 stories. One, a quiet, unsolved puzzle of faith and function from the age of Darius, and the other, a loud, triumphant declaration of victory and legacy from the age of Shapur. It stands as a testament to the Persian tradition of using monuments not just to celebrate the present, but to speak to the future and lay claim to the past. While the grand monuments of the Achaemenids and Sassanians often celebrated the power of kings and the state, our journey now takes us to a sanctuary that worshipped a far more elemental and universal force, the source of life itself. In the small town of Kangavar, atop a vast, imposing stone platform that seems to grow directly from the bedrock, stand the haunting remains of the Temple of Anahita. This is not a monument to a mortal ruler, but to a divine power, the goddess of waters, fertility, and wisdom. Here, the architecture itself becomes a liquid hymn, a hidden message carved in stone about the sacred, life-sustaining role of water and the revered status of the divine feminine in ancient Persia. The first thing that strikes you about the Anahita temple is its raw, powerful simplicity. Unlike the intricate carvings of Persepolis or the soaring arches of Islamic mosques, this site feels primal. Its core is a massive, stepped stone terrace, a man-made acropolis that dominates the surrounding plain. Built with colossal, perfectly cut blocks of stone without the use of mortar, the structure exudes a sense of timeless, elemental strength. This was not meant to be a delicate or ornate space. It was designed to feel eternal and unshakable, a fitting throne for a goddess who commanded the fundamental forces of nature. The sheer scale of the stonework communicates a message of immense reverence, suggesting that the power being honored here was as foundational as the earth itself. But the true genius and hidden message of the temple is revealed not in its walls, but in what flowed through them. The entire complex was engineered as a sophisticated hydraulic system, a machine for celebrating water. Archaeologists have uncovered a network of channels, conduits, and basins carved directly into the stone platform. The central feature was likely a covered, vaulted hall where a sacred spring was channeled into a deep, central pool. This was the heart of the sanctuary. Unlike a fire temple which focused energy upward, the Temple of Anahita drew its power from below, from the underground water sources that fed the spring. The architecture was designed to control, display, and glorify this flowing water, making the invisible divine force visible and tangible to worshippers. The ritual experience would have been multisensory and profoundly moving. Pilgrims would have approached the temple, hearing the whisper of water flowing through hidden channels before they even saw it. They would then ascend the great platform, a physical and symbolic rise toward the sacred. Upon entering the main hall, they would be met with the sight and sound of clear, cool water bubbling up from the earth and flowing through the intricate stone channels, perhaps filling the central pool before cascading down to lower levels to irrigate the temple's sacred gardens below. The air would have been filled with moisture and the sound of rushing water, a stark and powerful contrast to the dry, arid landscape of the surrounding plains. This immersive environment was a living sermon on the miracle of water, transforming the goddess's blessing from an abstract concept into a physical, sensory reality. This focus on water as the central object of worship reveals a deep, sophisticated theology. In the Zoroastrian cosmology that Anahita predates but was later incorporated into, water is one of the 7 sacred creations of Ahura Mazda, to be protected from pollution at all costs. Anahita herself, known as Ardvi Sura Anahita, the strong, untainted waters, was not just a minor deity. She was an immensely popular and powerful figure, the source of all life on earth. She was the purifier of seeds, the purifier of wombs, and the bestower of fertility upon women, livestock, and fields. By building a temple where her essence was physically present in the flowing water, the architects were making a powerful statement about the interdependence of the divine, the natural world, and human society. Prosperity, health, and continuity itself depended on honoring this life-giving force. Furthermore, the temple's dedication to a powerful female goddess offers a crucial hidden message about the role of the feminine in pre-Islamic Persian spirituality. In a history often dominated by narratives of male kings and warriors, the Temple of Anahita stands as a monumental counterpoint. It was a place where the generative, nurturing, and wise aspects of the divine were worshipped as feminine. This would have been a sanctuary where women likely played a central role as priestesses and supplicants, seeking blessings for childbirth and the fertility of their communities. The worship of Anahita connects ancient Persia to a wider ancient world that revered powerful mother goddesses like Ishtar, Isis, and Cybele. suggesting a shared understanding of the feminine as a primary creative force in the universe. The temple's eventual fall into ruin adds a final, poignant layer to its message. With the Arab conquest and the shift to Islam, the overt worship of Anahita faded. The sacred channels ran dry, and the meaning of the great stone platform was forgotten, later misidentified by some as a palace of the mythical hero Jamshid. Yet, even in its silence, the structure continues to whisper its truth. In a modern world facing a crisis of water scarcity and environmental degradation, the Temple of Anahita feels startlingly relevant. It stands as a timeless reminder of a civilization that did not take water for granted, but revered it as the ultimate divine gift, building its most impressive architecture not to conquer nature, but to honor its most precious source. Beyond the grand narratives of kings and empires, in the very soul of the city of Shiraz, lies a sanctuary dedicated to a different kind of power, the eternal power of the word. The tomb of Hafez is not a monument of stone proclaiming military victories or divine right. It is a garden of the spirit, a space where every path, every leaf, and every etched line of poetry whispers a hidden message about love, mortality, and the soul's ascent. To enter this place is to step into one of Hafez's own ghazals, where the physical world becomes a metaphor for a profound spiritual journey, inviting every visitor to become a seeker on the path. The experience begins not at the tomb itself, but in the journey toward it. You approach through a classic Persian garden, a chahar bog, with its symmetrical pathways dividing lush greenery and flowing water channels. This is the first layer of the hidden code. The garden is a deliberate recreation of the Islamic paradise, a symbolic representation of the promised afterlife. But in the context of Hafez, it means so much more. For the poet, the garden was not just a heavenly reward, it was the setting for earthly joy, for drinking wine, for hearing poetry, for falling in love. The garden thus sends a dual message. It is a reminder of divine eternity, but also a celebration of the beautiful, fleeting moments of human life that make that eternity meaningful. You are walking through a paradox, a space that simultaneously speaks of heavenly permanence and earthly transience, a central theme in Hafez's work. At the heart of this garden stands the tomb itself, an open, pavilion-like structure that feels both intimate and expansive. It is crowned by a beautiful turquoise-tiled dome, but it is the structure beneath it that holds a profound numerical secret. The tomb chamber is supported by 8 columns. This number is far from arbitrary. In classical Islamic cosmology, the universe is composed of 8 heavens, each one a level of celestial spheres rotating around the earth, with the 8th heaven being the highest, the realm of the fixed stars and the boundary of the divine throne. By designing the tomb with 8 columns, the architects were creating a powerful architectural metaphor. They were suggesting that the humble tomb of this poet, this mere mortal, is actually supported by and symbolically represents the very highest heaven itself. The message is breathtaking. The enduring wisdom and beauty of Hafez's poetry have elevated him to a cosmic status, placing his words on a par with the eternal fixed stars. His art has become a fundamental pillar of the universe. This celestial symbolism is then made personal, brought down to earth by the very words that surround you. The entire pavilion is a tapestry of his poetry. Verses from his divan are inscribed in elegant calligraphy on the friezes, the walls, and even on the marble tombstone itself. This is not mere decoration, it is an interactive cryptographic challenge to the visitor. Hafez's poetry is famously layered, filled with double meanings and mystical allusions. The word Saki, the cupbearer, can mean both the earthly server of wine and the divine source of spiritual ecstasy. The tavern can be a place of revelry or a sanctuary for enlightened outcasts. As you move through the space, your eyes catch different verses, each one inviting a new interpretation, a personal reflection. The architecture forces you to engage with the poetry, to circle the tomb, to read and reread, and in doing so, to participate in the same act of seeking truth that defined Hafez's life. The culture of visitation at the tomb completes this living message. Iranians do not come here to mourn a man who died 6 centuries ago. They come to commune with his eternal spirit. It is a common and deeply moving sight to see families and friends gathered around the tombstone, each holding a divan of Hafez. They engage in the ancient practice of fal-e-Hafez or bibliomancy, where they quietly ask a question about their life, open the book at random, and read the poem they find as a form of divinatory guidance. The tomb becomes a living oracle, a place where art actively converses with the present. The low murmur of countless readers reciting verses creates a constant melodic hum, a soundscape of seeking that has continued uninterrupted for generations. This transforms the tomb of Hafez from a static memorial into a dynamic engine of contemplation. The hidden message woven into its gardens, its 8 columns, and its inscribed verses is ultimately one of hope and connection. It argues that true immortality is not found in stone monuments or political power, but in the timeless relevance of art that speaks to the human condition. Hafez wrote about love, hypocrisy, doubt, faith, and the joy of existence with a wit and humanity that feels utterly contemporary. His tomb, therefore, is not a closed door on the past, but an open window into a perpetual conversation about what it means to live a meaningful life. It stands as a quiet, powerful rebuttal to the tyranny of time, proving that a few carefully chosen words etched in the right place can outlast any empire and continue to guide the human soul for centuries. After wandering the poetic gardens of Hafez, a far more imposing figure from Shiraz's history commands our attention just a short distance away. In the very heart of the city stands the Arg-e-Akut Karim Khan, a colossal fortress of sun-baked brick that seems to grow directly from the urban landscape. This was the seat of power for Karim Khan Zand, a ruler who rose from the chaos following the fall of the Safavid dynasty to found his own and declare Shur as his capital. Unlike the distant divine kings of Persepolis, Karim Khan wished to be seen as a just and accessible leader, even adopting the humble title Vakil al-Raya, or Advocate of the People. Yet his citadel tells a more complex story, a narrative woven in brick and mortar that speaks simultaneously of immense strength and a surprising, almost human vulnerability. The first message of the Arg is one of sheer, uncompromising power, and it is delivered the moment you lay eyes on its formidable walls. 4 massive circular towers, connected by towering curtains of brick over 40 feet high, create a perfect square that dominates the city center. This was a working fortress designed to house the royal family, the government, and a full military garrison. The architectural language here is one of pure defense. The high walls are punctuated with rows of narrow, vertical slits for archers, while the crenellated battlements provided cover for soldiers. The bricks themselves are laid in a strikingly beautiful patterned bond, but this is not merely decorative. The alternating raised and recessed rows create a stronger, more resilient surface that is harder for siege engines to damage. Every aspect of the exterior seems to shout a single, clear command. This authority is protected, permanent, and not to be challenged. But then your eye is drawn to the southwestern corner tower, and the citadel's message suddenly becomes far more intriguing. This tower possesses a distinct, visible lean. Local legend enthusiastically claims this was a deliberate choice by the modest Karim Khan. After building 3 perfect towers, the story goes, he ordered the 4th to be built tilted so that no one could accuse him of trying to rival the perfection of God. It's a charming tale that fits his benevolent reputation, but the more likely and perhaps more fascinating explanation involves a hidden, subterranean reality. Engineers and historians suggest the tilt was an unforeseen consequence of the building's location, right over a natural underground water channel. the constant flow of water gradually softened the clay foundations on one side, causing the massive structure to slowly sink and tilt over centuries. This unintentional flaw introduces a powerful element of fragility into the display of power. The citadel, for all its strength, is still subject to the invisible, relentless forces of nature. It stands as a silent metaphor for any ruling power. No matter how formidable it may appear, it can be undermined by unseen weaknesses, its foundation slowly shifting over time. To step through the massive gateway and cross the deep, defensive moat is to enter a completely different world, and to receive Karim Khan's second, more refined message. The interior is not the stark, militaristic barracks one might expect from the forbidding exterior. Instead, you are welcomed into a serene, lush paradise. The central courtyard is a classic Persian garden, a chahar bog with 4 perfectly symmetrical quadrants divided by water channels that feed mature citrus trees, casting dappled shade and filling the air with the scent of blossoms. This sudden transition from martial harshness to tranquil beauty is a deliberate architectural strategy. It proclaims that behind the strong, protective arm of the state lies a civilized, cultured, and prosperous heart. Karim Khan wasn't just a military strongman. He was a patron of the arts, a builder of bazaars and bathhouses, a ruler who valued the fruits of peace as much as the tools of war. The garden is a hidden message of his aspiration to provide not just security, but a good and beautiful life for his people. This theme of refined authority is echoed in the stunning tilework that adorns the interior walls of the royal quarters. Here, far from the unadorned brick of the exterior, the walls come alive with a vibrant palette of blues, greens, yellows, and whites. The scenes depicted are not of battle or conquest, but of the gentle, courtly life. We see elegant figures in peaceful gardens, musicians playing soft melodies, and hunters pursuing prey in stylized, almost ceremonial landscapes. This is the Zand dynasty's vision of itself immortalized in ceramic and glaze, an era of restoration, peace, and cultural flourishing after the long periods of war and uncertainty. The choice of such peaceful, domestic imagery inside a military fortress is profoundly telling. It suggests that Karim Khan's ultimate ambition was to create a stable and harmonious kingdom where the arts could thrive behind strong, protective walls. The citadel, therefore, becomes a holistic portrait of a ruler, its formidable exterior representing his strength and his ability to conquer and protect, while its beautiful interior represents his wisdom and his desire to build, create, and cultivate a lasting legacy of peace. Rising from the sun-scorched plains of Fars province, far from any major ancient city or royal road, stands a structure that seems to defy not just the harsh landscape, but also centuries of architectural convention. The Sassanian palace of Sarvastan is an enigma built in brick and mortar, a solitary sentinel whose true purpose has been debated by scholars for generations. Its very name is a misnomer, a placeholder born of uncertainty, for this may not have been a palace at all. Its isolated grandeur and revolutionary design make it one of Persia's most compelling architectural puzzles, a building that communicates not through inscriptions or reliefs, but through the silent, soaring language of its forms. From a distance, its profile is unmistakably Sassanian, a series of robust, geometric volumes capped by domes and vaults. Yet, as you draw closer, its uniqueness becomes apparent. Unlike the crowded, ceremonial complexes of Firuzabad or the rock-hewn narratives of Taki-Boston, Sarvastan stands utterly alone. There are no surrounding walls of a city, no remnants of a bustling town, no visible source of water other than what could be collected from the stubborn earth. This profound isolation is the first and loudest hidden message. This was not a building intended for public spectacle or administrative function. Its remoteness suggests a very private purpose, a sanctuary designed for escape rather than for display. Some historians propose it was a royal hunting lodge, a retreat where a king like Bahram V, known for his love of poetry and the chase, could withdraw from the burdens of court to enjoy the solitude of the plains. Others see it as a sacred space, a fire temple, or a sanctuary dedicated to the goddess Anahita, its seclusion providing the necessary purity and quiet for profound devotion. The building refuses to declare its function outright, instead offering its solitude as a riddle for us to unravel. The true hidden message of Savastan, however, is not in its location but in its breathtaking architectural ambition. Built in the 5th century, its design is a staggering leap forward, a prophetic glimpse of the architectural revolutions that would define Islamic Persia centuries later. The central feature is a large, square chamber crowned by a lofty dome, but the genius lies in how that dome is supported. The Sassanian architects who conceived this structure faced a fundamental challenge: how to place a circular dome atop a square room. The classic solution, used by the Romans and later perfected in Byzantine churches like the Hagia Sophia, was to use massive stone pendentives or squinches, triangular sections of masonry that transition the weight from the square base to the circular dome. These required enormous supporting buttresses on the exterior to counteract the outward thrust of the dome's weight. But at Savastan, the architects developed a radically different and arguably more elegant solution. They constructed a series of intersecting arches and niches within the thickness of the walls themselves, creating an internal lattice of support that channeled the dome's immense weight directly down into the building's core and foundations. This intricate internal skeleton eliminated the need for external buttresses, resulting in a building whose exterior appears clean, balanced, and perfectly self-contained. This was a hidden message of supreme architectural confidence and intellectual mastery. The builders possessed such a deep understanding of geometry and structural physics that they could solve the problem of the dome from within, creating a sense of effortless grace that belies the tremendous forces at play. The soaring, unobstructed space inside the domed chamber feels both monumental and intimate, a testament to an engineering philosophy that prioritized internal harmony over external propping. This innovation was not limited to the central dome. The entire structure is a symphony of vaulting techniques. Barrel vaults span the longer halls, while smaller, lower domes cover adjacent rooms, each one a careful experiment in managing space and weight. The use of baked brick, a lighter and more flexible material than the stone used at Persepolis, allowed for these more daring and complex forms. The architects were essentially writing the first chapter of a new architectural language, one that would later enable the construction of the vast, sky-filled mosques of Isfahan and the delicate, soaring towers of Samarkand. Savastan is the crucial, missing link between the grand scales of antiquity and the weightless elegance of the medieval Islamic world. Its hidden message is one of quiet revolution, a blueprint for the future left behind in a deserted landscape, waiting for later generations to rediscover its principles and unleash its potential. Ultimately, the Palace of Savastan remains gloriously ambiguous. It might have been a place where a king whispered secrets to his courtiers, the domes amplifying their quiet conversation. It might have been a temple where the flicker of a solitary flame was reflected in the intricate curves of the brickwork, its design a mirror for divine light. This very ambiguity is its final and most beautiful secret. It stands as a testament to the idea that a building's deepest meaning isn't always found in its stated purpose, but in the sheer, daring brilliance of its construction. It is a monument not to a single king or a single god, but to the limitless creativity of the human mind, an eternal reminder that the most profound messages are often those built not with words, but with space, light, and soaring ambition. To fully grasp the profound meaning of a Tower of Silence, one must step back and view it not as a standalone structure, but as the central node in a meticulously planned ritual landscape. The dakma itself, the circular raised platform, was only the most visible part of a much larger sacred complex. an architectural ecosystem where every path, wall, and building was imbued with deep theological significance, creating a hidden, three-dimensional map of the Zoroastrian universe. The journey for the funeral procession began far from the tower itself, at a building known as the Sagri. This was a house for the mourners, a place of preparation and final farewells positioned a significant distance from the actual excarnation site. This physical separation is the first crucial layer of the complex's code. It established a clear, graded boundary between the world of the living, which must be protected from spiritual pollution, and the realm of the dead, which must be contained. The mourners would wash and prepare here, already beginning the process of ritual purification before approaching the sacred and dangerous zone of the Dakma. This building sent a clear message. The transition from life to death was not an abrupt line, but a graduated path, a journey that required mental and spiritual preparation. From the Sagri, the nacelators, the specialized corpse-bearers, would carry the body along a predetermined, often winding path towards the tower. This path itself was significant. It was never a straight, direct line. A meandering route ensured that the polluting force of the corpse did not travel in a straight vector back towards the living community or towards sources of pure water. It was a physical manifestation of the concept of containment, of carefully guiding a dangerous element to its proper, isolated destination. Upon reaching the foot of the hill, the procession would encounter another key structure, a deep, circular well, meticulously lined with stone and often covered. This was not a source of drinking water, it was a specialized ritual tool. After the excarnation was complete and the nacelators had completed their sacred duty, they were considered highly polluted. Before they could return to the world of the living, they underwent an elaborate cleansing ritual. They would draw water from this well, water that was collected purely from rainfall, thus considered pure and untouched by the earth, to wash themselves and their tools. The presence of this well reinforces the absolute sanctity of the earth and groundwater. Even in this moment of necessary cleansing, the worshippers could not simply dig a pit. They had to use heaven-sent water, stored in a man-made vessel, to avoid contaminating the ground. The well, the tower, and the path between them formed a precise, functional triad governing the cycle of purification. The entire complex, when viewed from above, can be seen as a powerful geometric expression of Zoroastrian cosmology. The Dakma, with its perfect circle divided into three concentric rings, mirrored the Zoroastrian view of a universe divided into three realms: the material world, the world of pure thought, and the space in between. The single, narrow entrance to the tower pathway acted as a spiritual airlock, a single point of controlled passage between the pure and impure zones. The surrounding walls and the designated areas for different groups of people, the Mob's priests, the nacelators, the mourners, created a series of concentric circles of decreasing sanctity radiating out from the tower itself. This meticulous zoning was a direct architectural translation of the core Zoroastrian struggle between the forces of good, represented by Ahura Mazda and the pure elements, and the forces of evil, represented by Angra Mainyu and the decay of death. The complex was a machine for managing this conflict. It provided a sacred, designated space where the inevitable pollution of death could be safely and efficiently neutralized by the purifying agents of the sun and vultures, all while rigorously shielding the rest of creation, the earth, water, fire, and air, from its corrosive influence. The Tower of Silence was not an isolated monument of death, but the beating heart of a vast, symbolic mechanism designed to uphold the cosmic order, a hidden message in stone and ritual that protected the living world by respectfully surrendering the dead to the sky. Picture a city not just built near a river, but one that is woven into its very fabric, where the thunder of water is the constant soundtrack of civilization. This is Shushta, and its historical hydraulic system is arguably one of the most ambitious engineering projects the ancient world ever produced. Far more than a mere collection of dams and canals, this is a monumental, multi-level machine carved directly into the living rock, a symphony of waterfalls, tunnels, and watermills that transformed a powerful river into the lifeblood of an entire society. While kings built palaces to celebrate their own glory, the anonymous engineers of Shushta built a monument to the glory of human ingenuity itself, a hidden message in plain sight that the true hero of Persian civilization was not always the warrior or the king, but the master builder who could command the elements. The heart of this system is the gargawir, a foundational marvel that serves as the conductor of this aqueous orchestra. The Sassanians, under the visionary rule of Shapur I, didn't just dam the mighty Karan River, they performed a kind of hydrological surgery. They diverted a significant portion of its flow into a new, artificial canal, creating the Garga River. This act of controlled redirection was the first masterstroke. It tamed the Karan's destructive seasonal floods, protecting the city, while simultaneously creating a predictable, powerful water source to drive the entire complex downstream. This was the ultimate expression of the Persian philosophy of working with nature, not against it, bending its power to human will through intelligence rather than brute force. From this point, the water is guided into a breathtaking labyrinth of channels and tunnels that course through the bedrock beneath the city. These are not simple waterways, they are precision-engineered conduits that feed a series of awe-inspiring artificial waterfalls. The most stunning of these is the area known as the Salisal Castles, where the water cascades down multiple tiers into a vast, bowl-shaped basin. The roar is deafening, the mist perpetual. But this spectacle is not for show. Each waterfall is a power source, each cascade a potential engine. The true genius of Shushta is how this raw, untamed energy was captured and put to work. Carved into the cliffsides alongside these thundering falls are the entrances to ancient watermills, their grinding stones once turned by the relentless force of the water. This is where the system's hidden message becomes clear. This was an industrial powerhouse. For centuries, these mills ground the grain that fed the region, their constant, rhythmic operation forming the economic heartbeat of Shushta. But the water's work didn't end there. An intricate network of smaller canals or maddies branched off from the main channels, snaking through the city's very foundations. This ingenious distribution system provided running water for drinking, bathing, and sanitation to homes and public baths, while also irrigating the vast, lush plains surrounding Shushta, turning the arid landscape into a veritable breadbasket. The same water that powered an industry also watered a garden and quenched a city's thirst. The system's sophistication extends even to its navigation. The channels were designed to be deep and wide enough for small boats, allowing for the transport of goods and people directly through the heart of the city's industrial and agricultural zones. This transformed the water network into a vital transportation corridor, seamlessly integrating commerce with industry and agriculture. Every element, the weir, the waterfalls, the mills, the canals, was part of an interdependent, holistic design. It was a single, cohesive organism where every part served multiple functions, a masterpiece of multi-purpose engineering that sustained every aspect of urban life from economy to ecology. This incredible achievement stands as a powerful eulogy to the unknown engineers of the Sassanian era. While the names of the kings were carved into mountainsides, the names of the men who designed this system are lost to time. Yet their legacy is far more enduring and tangible. They left a monument that did not just boast of power, but that generated it. It provided not just spiritual solace, but physical sustenance. The Shushta hydraulic system is a testament to a civilization that valued practical genius and viewed the harnessing of nature for the public good as the highest form of artistry. It whispers a timeless message that true greatness is measured not by the palaces one builds for oneself, but by the engines one builds for everyone. After exploring the thundering industrial waterfalls of Shushtar, we now step into a space of serene, almost mathematical perfection. Nestled within the arid climate of Kashan, the Finn Garden appears like a vivid hallucination of green against the surrounding brown hills. This is not a wild, untamed nature, but nature perfected, organized, and elevated to the level of high art. As a masterpiece of the Chahar Bog or fourfold garden design, the Finn Garden is far more than a beautiful oasis. It is a profound philosophical statement carved into the earth, a living blueprint of the Persian worldview that encodes a hidden message about the cosmos, divinity, and humanity's ideal place within it. The moment you pass through its historic entrance, the garden's central code reveals itself with stunning clarity. The entire complex is laid out within a perfect, walled rectangle, and this rectangle is precisely divided into 4 smaller quadrants by 2 majestically flowing water channels. These channels intersect at a graceful, central pavilion, creating a perfect cross that organizes the entire space. This rigid, geometric order is the first and most important layer of the hidden message. In a world of chaos and uncertainty, the garden presents a vision of absolute harmony and balance. It is a world where every tree, every flower, and every path has its designated place, reflecting a belief in a universe governed by divine law and rational principles. This is not merely a design preference, it is a symbolic recreation of a perfected universe, a microcosm of paradise itself. This symbolic language draws its power from ancient pre-Islamic roots. The Chahar Bog layout is deeply informed by Zoroastrian cosmology, which divided the universe into 4 sacred elements: Asman, sky; Zamin, earth; Ab, water; and Jia, plants. The garden physically manifests this cosmic structure. The open sky arches overhead, the earth forms the garden beds, the water flows visibly through the channels, and the plants thrive in their designated quadrants. The garden is a complete, self-contained model of the world as understood by its creators, a living mandala that celebrates and honors the fundamental components of creation. By walking through it, one literally walks through a symbolic representation of the universe, a reminder of humanity's connection to and dependence upon these elemental forces. With the arrival of Islam, this ancient Persian symbolism was seamlessly adopted and enriched with new layers of meaning. The Quran's lush and detailed descriptions of paradise or Jannah as a garden of eternity with rivers flowing beneath it found a perfect architectural expression in the Chahar Bog. The 4 intersecting water channels came to represent the 4 rivers of paradise described in Islamic scripture, rivers of water, milk, honey, and wine. The Finn Garden, therefore, becomes a tangible preview of the heavenly abode promised to the faithful. It is an attempt to bring the celestial down to earth, to create a space where one can experience a glimpse of divine promise in the present world. The central pavilion where the channels meet becomes the celestial throne or the focal point of divine presence, offering a place of contemplation and connection with the eternal. Beyond the grand cosmology, the garden's design is a masterclass in environmental psychology and sensory engagement. The journey through the garden is carefully choreographed to move the visitor from the harsh, arid outside world into a progressively more serene and beautiful inner sanctum. The high walls shut out the dust and noise of the desert, creating a private, protected realm. The sound of the flowing water is constant, a soothing auditory backdrop that immediately lowers the heart rate and invites contemplation. The shade provided by the ancient cypress trees and the fragrant blossoms of the fruit trees engage the senses of touch and smell, creating a fully immersive experience of peace and abundance. This meticulous attention to sensory detail is itself a hidden message about the ideal state of human existence, one that is sheltered, nourished, beautiful, and in harmony with nature. The water system within the Finn Garden is a marvel of engineering that reinforces its symbolic role. The water for the channels is supplied by a nearby spring, channeled through qanats, and its flow is managed by a series of delicate gates and pools. The water is never hidden, it is always visible and audible, celebrating its life-giving role. The precise calculation of water pressure ensures that the channels flow gently and continuously without ever overflowing, a symbol of the perfectly managed and abundant resources of paradise. This visible, flowing water is the garden's lifeblood and its central metaphor, representing purity, life, wisdom, and the continuous flow of divine grace that sustains all of creation. Ultimately, the Finn Garden's most powerful hidden message is one of hope and optimism. In the middle of a desert, it demonstrates humanity's ability to create a paradise through intelligence, will, and reverence for natural law. It argues that order can be imposed on chaos, that beauty can flourish in the most unlikely places, and that the divine is not a distant concept but something that can be experienced through the thoughtful arrangement of water, earth, and plants. It stands as a timeless testament to the Persian genius for synthesizing different spiritual traditions into a unified, beautiful whole, creating a space that speaks to the soul across centuries, inviting every visitor to wander its paths and for a moment inhabit a perfect world. Imagine a structure standing alone in the vast, windswept emptiness of the Khorasan Plateau, a solitary fortress of civilization against a sea of barren land. This is Gonbad-e Sharaf, one of the greatest caravanserais on the entire Silk Road, and to walk through its ruined yet majestic gateways is to witness a story written not in one era, but in two distinct architectural languages. Its walls tell a tale of destruction and rebirth, a powerful hidden narrative about the resilience of human connection in the face of overwhelming chaos. Built in the 12th century during the Seljuk Empire's golden age, Gonbad-e Sharaf was originally a masterpiece of imperial ambition and engineering. This was no simple roadside inn, it was a royal caravanserai, a palace for travelers. Its sprawling rectangular plan, encompassing over 10,000 square meters, was designed to be a self-contained city in the wilderness. The initial construction utilized the signature elegance of Seljuk brickwork, perfectly laid bricks forming intricate geometric patterns, soaring domes, and graceful pointed arches. The complex was divided into two main courtyards, an outer one for the common travelers and their beasts of burden, and an inner, more lavishly decorated court reserved for merchants, diplomats, and dignitaries. Here they would find not just shelter but luxury, a mosque for prayer, a bathhouse for cleansing, and private rooms adorned with stucco ornamentation. The original Seljuk structure was a clear, confident message in baked clay. This is a secure, organized, and prosperous empire, and its might ensures the safety of your journey. Then came the cataclysm. In the early 13th century, the Mongol hordes under Genghis Khan swept through Persia with a force that seemed to erase civilizations from the map. Cities were utterly destroyed, populations were decimated, and the intricate network of trade and travel that was the Silk Road was severed. Gonbad-e Sharaf lay directly in the path of this tempest. The evidence of its violent end is still there for those who know how to look. Archaeologists have found layers of ash and clear signs of fire, the silent testaments to its sacking and abandonment. For a time, it stood as a hollowed-out shell, a monument to a world that had been brutally extinguished, but the story does not end there, and this is where the hidden message of Gonbad-e Sharaf reveals itself in the most profound way. Within a surprisingly short period, perhaps only a few decades later, something remarkable happened. The Mongols themselves, or more accurately, the Ilkhanate dynasty they established to rule Persia, decided to rebuild it. This is the stunning twist in the tale, the second layer of the architectural palimpsest. The new builders did not tear down the old Seljuk walls. They worked with them, patching, repairing, and adding onto the original skeleton. This is the key to decoding the caravanserai's secret. The reconstruction was done with a different hand, a different eye. The later brickwork is often rougher, more utilitarian, a pragmatic response to urgent need rather than a statement of artistic flourish. The joints are less precise, the patterns less complex, you can see the clear line between the original, refined Seljuk masonry and the functional, robust Ilkhanid repairs. This choice to rebuild and to rebuild upon the old foundations is a powerful hidden message of cultural continuity. It signals that while empires may fall and dynasties may change, the fundamental human needs for trade, communication, and safe passage are indestructible. The Mongols, often depicted solely as destroyers, realized that to govern their new empire, they needed to revive the very arteries of commerce they had severed. By restoring Robat-e Sharaf, they were making a pragmatic investment in stability and taxation, but they were also, perhaps unintentionally, acknowledging the superior organizational model of the civilization they had conquered. They were preserving the Seljuk blueprint for civilization. Therefore, Robat-e Sharaf stands as a monumental metaphor for resilience. It is not a monument to a single victory or a single king. It is a monument to the unbreakable spirit of exchange. The caravanserai's very fabric, a mosaic of Seljuk artistry and Ilkhanid pragmatism, whispers that culture is not so easily erased. It can be wounded, it can be battered, but its foundations often remain, waiting for a new generation to pick up the bricks and begin again. It tells us that even in the aftermath of immense destruction, the impulse to connect, to trade, and to journey toward the horizon is one of the most enduring forces in human history. Rising from the expansive Tehran skyline like a triumphant gate to a new era, the Azadi Tower stands as a monument to modern identity, its meaning as layered and complex as the nation it represents. Conceived in 1971 by the last Shah, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, to mark 2,500 years of continuous Persian monarchy, it was originally named the Shahiyad Tower, the King's Memorial. Its very inception was a grand, sweeping statement, an attempt to anchor the Shah's modernizing, westward-looking vision firmly in the deep, glorious soil of the ancient past. And this dual identity, this inherent tension between looking back and leaping forward, is encoded directly into its brilliant white marble skin. The architect Hossein Amanat, a young visionary who won the national competition, masterfully wove this contradiction into the tower's very form. At first glance, its silhouette is unmistakably, triumphantly Sassanian. The central arch, a soaring Iwan reaching 148 feet toward the sky, is a direct homage to the grand ceremonial arches of the pre-Islamic Empire, like the Great Arch at Ctesiphon. This is the architectural language of Cyrus and Darius, of Shapur and Khosrow, a deliberate, powerful evocation of imperial majesty and national pride that predates the Arab conquests. It is a stone declaration of a Persia whose identity is measured in millennia, not centuries. But then, as your eye travels upward, the Islamic era gracefully intervenes. The arch is not a solid form. It is intricately latticed, its surface carved with a mesmerizing pattern of traditional mokhanas, those stalactite-like decorative elements that adorn the interiors of mosques and palaces from Isfahan to Samarkand. This intricate stone lacework filters the harsh Iranian sun, casting ever-shifting geometric shadows, and it speaks the aesthetic language of the country's Islamic heritage. The structure is crowned not by a Zoroastrian Faravaha, but by a truncated, inverted Y-shaped pinnacle that subtly evokes the forms of classic Persian minarets. Amanat himself described the design as a fusion of the Sassanian and post-Islamic styles, creating a bridge across history. The tower doesn't choose one identity over the other. It physically demonstrates their inextricable union, suggesting that Iran's true strength lies in this synthesis of its entire history. Beneath this grand symbolism lies another, more futuristic layer of meaning. The tower is not simply a nostalgic replica. It is a feat of modern engineering, constructed with reinforced concrete and clad in over 8,000 blocks of gleaming white marble quarried from the Isfahan region. Its main arch is a perfect parabola, a mathematical form that speaks to 20th century rationalism and progress. The vast plaza surrounding it, the Azadi Square, was designed as a grand civic space for a modern capital, a place for the people to gather and celebrate. The original museum in its basement was a state-of-the-art affair, housing artifacts that told the story of the monarchy's long reign. Every aspect of the original design was meant to signal that Iran was stepping confidently into the modern world, not by abandoning its past, but by building its future directly upon it. It was a monument to a very specific vision of a secular, powerful, and progressive Iran, led by a monarch claiming the legacy of the ancient King of Kings. Then came the revolution of 1979. In one of history's great ironies, the monument built to glorify the monarchy became the central stage for the forces that would overthrow it. Mass demonstrations filled the very square the Shah had built, and the tower, once a symbol of his authority, became a backdrop for its dissolution. With the revolution's success, the new Islamic Republic faced a dilemma. Do you tear down the potent symbol of the old regime? They chose a different path. They reclaimed it. Its name was changed from Shahiyad, King's Memorial, to Azadi, Freedom. The monument's physical form remained, but its central narrative was officially rewritten. It was no longer a tribute to 2,500 years of monarchy. It was now a symbol of the people's revolution and their freedom from the Shah's oppressive rule. This act of renaming transformed the tower into a palimpsest of national identity. Its layers of meaning, once intended to be harmonious, became a site of quiet contest. For some, it remains a beautiful, ambivalent relic of the pre-revolutionary era, its architecture still whispering of that older, secular nationalist pride. For the state, it is a symbol of the Islamic Republic's triumph and resilience. And for the people of Tehran, it is often simply a beloved landmark, a place for family gatherings, a backdrop for nightly light shows, and a roundabout that creates infamous traffic jams. Its meaning is no longer fixed by its architect or its first patron. It is continually negotiated and reshaped by every generation that passes through its shadow, a permanent and powerful question mark at the heart of the capital, asking what it truly means to be Iranian. Leaving behind the grand political narratives of Azadi Tower, we find ourselves on a much more intimate and intellectually charged pilgrimage, traveling northeast to the city of poets and thinkers, Nishapur. Here, in a quiet garden, rests a man whose mind truly bridged worlds, Omar Khayyam. His tomb is a surprisingly modern structure, built in 1963, yet it speaks a timeless language, one of geometry, astronomy, and a quiet, profound reverence for a polymath whose genius we are still unraveling today. The structure itself is a masterclass in symbolic architecture. It is not a large, domed mausoleum, but an open, airy pavilion, a delicate white marble canopy rising on 10 pillars. Its most striking feature is its roof, a complex, multi-faceted star-shaped form that seems to hover weightlessly above the tomb. This is not merely decorative whimsy. It is a direct, three-dimensional homage to Khayyam's own monumental intellectual achievements. The star shape, with its sharp, intersecting angles and precise points, is a physical manifestation of the geometric principles he explored so deeply in his seminal work, Treatise on Demonstration of Problems of Algebra. The entire structure feels like a mathematical theorem rendered in stone, a place where abstract thought has been given a beautiful, permanent form. This geometric tribute extends beyond algebra to his perhaps greatest practical accomplishment, the creation of the Jalali calendar. Commissioned by the Seljuk Sultan Jalal al-Din Malik Shah, Khayyam led a team of astronomers in a radical reform of the calendar. Their work was so astonishingly precise that it calculated the solar year to be 365.24219858156 days, a figure staggeringly close to our modern measurements. The Khayyamian calendar had an error of only 1 day in every 5,000 years, a feat of accuracy that the Gregorian calendar we use today doesn't even match. The star-shaped canopy of his tomb echoes this celestial obsession. Its points reach outward, mapping an invisible celestial sphere, while the open design allows the sun and stars to become part of the monument itself. At certain times of day, the light casts intricate shadows that move across the grave marker like a sundial, a silent, perpetual performance of the very solar cycles he dedicated his life to measuring. The tomb is in effect a functioning astronomical instrument, ensuring his legacy is forever in dialogue with the cosmos. Yet, for all its celebration of his scientific mind, the garden setting provides the final, crucial layer of this hidden message. Omar Khayyam is far more famous in the Western world not as a mathematician or astronomer, but as a poet, the author of the deeply philosophical and often skeptical Rubaiyat. His verses, translated by Edward Fitzgerald, speak of the fleeting nature of life, the importance of cherishing the present moment, and a certain doubt toward religious dogma. The modern designers of the tomb placed this geometric, celestial monument within a traditional Persian paradise garden, a chahar bog, with cypress trees symbolizing eternity and flowering plants representing the beauty and transience of life. This fusion is perfect. The rigid, eternal laws of mathematics and the heavens are represented by the marble star, while the soft, changing, and sensual world he so famously wrote about is embodied in the garden. It is a complete portrait of the man, the rigorous scientist who sought absolute truth in the stars and in numbers, and the poetic soul who understood and celebrated the beautiful, impermanent chaos of human existence. His final resting place is not a shrine to one aspect of his genius, but a harmonious union of them all, a quiet corner of Nishapur where algebra, astronomy, and poetry finally meet under a canopy of stone and sky. After exploring the celestial poetry of Khayyam's tomb, we now descend from the light of the stars into the profound, enveloping darkness of the earth itself. Our final journey takes us far below the bustling streets of a seemingly ordinary town, into one of Persia's most astonishing and claustrophobic secrets. Imagine a sudden, terrifying cloud of dust on the horizon, the approach of a Mongol horde, a raiding army, or a relentless desert storm. For the people of Naqshband, the answer was not to flee or to fight on the surface, but to simply vanish. They would lift a well cover, pull up a rug in their home, or slip through a hidden entrance in the bakery, disappearing into a vast, multi-level underworld known as the underground city of Naqshband, a breathtaking labyrinth that is the ultimate hidden message of communal survival. This was not a single tunnel or a small hiding place. It was an entire city beneath a city, a sophisticated subterranean complex spanning over 4 square kilometers, with some chambers reaching depths of nearly 60 feet. Built over centuries, beginning in the Sassanian era and expanded through successive generations, its existence was a closely guarded secret, a masterpiece of defensive architecture designed to preserve life itself. The sheer scale of the excavation is staggering, every inch of it dug by hand with primitive tools, and the earth carried out in baskets, a monumental labor of love and fear that speaks volumes about the perpetual threats these people faced. The entrance to this hidden world was the first and most crucial part of its code. Access points were cunningly disguised and scattered throughout the town. Some were hidden inside private homes, allowing families to escape without ever stepping outside. Others were concealed in public spaces like mosques, bathhouses, and bakeries, ensuring that no matter where a person was when danger struck, a sanctuary was always within reach. The most famous entrance is through the mouth of a qanat, a water canal, a brilliant deception that would lead any pursuer to believe the fleeing villagers had simply vanished downstream. Stepping into the cool, narrow passageways, you immediately understand this was not a temporary bolt hole. This was a fully engineered habitat designed for extended habitation. The tunnels are a complex, branching maze, a deliberate design to confuse any invader foolish enough to follow. Low ceilings force everyone to crouch, a disadvantage for an armored soldier, but a minor inconvenience for a resident who knew the path. The corridors are intentionally narrow, often allowing only one person to pass at a time, creating perfect choke points where a single defender could hold off a multitude. But the true genius of Naqshband lies in its sophisticated life support systems. The entire complex was ventilated by a network of air shafts, cleverly disguised on the surface as ordinary dry wells. These channels ensured a constant supply of fresh air to even the deepest chambers, preventing suffocation and stagnation. Most vital of all was water. The city was intricately linked to the region's Qanat system, with channels of fresh, flowing water running through specific tunnels. This provided a constant, renewable source of drinking water, the absolute key to surviving a siege that could last for weeks. Designated areas were used for storing food supplies, and archaeologists have found evidence of rooms used as kitchens, prayer spaces, and sleeping quarters. There were even communal areas and larger halls where people could gather, a necessary provision for maintaining morale and social structure during long periods of confinement. The darkness was pierced by niches in the walls designed to hold oil lamps, and the blackened ceilings still bear the soot of their flames, a ghostly reminder of the countless hours of anxious waiting illuminated by that fragile, flickering light. The hidden message of Naqshband, therefore, is one of profound communal intelligence and long-term strategic thinking. It represents a society that chose to invest its collective energy not in building higher walls on the surface, but in digging a deeper, secret sanctuary below. It was a strategy of absolute secrecy and passive defense, a belief that the best way to win was not to confront the threat, but to outlast it. This underground city is a physical manifesto of preparedness, a lesson passed down through generations about the importance of having a plan to preserve not just individual lives, but the entire community, its families, its culture, and its very future. In its cool, silent corridors, we hear the most powerful whisper of all. That true strength sometimes lies not in confrontation, but in the wisdom to hide, to wait, and to ensure that when the storm above finally passes, your people will be there to emerge and begin again. From the cosmic ambition of the Gonbad-e Qabus Tower, telling time with its shadow, to the life-giving genius of Shushta's hydraulic symphony, we've journeyed through 30 testaments to a civilization that thought in layers. We've seen how stone could be a canvas for royal boasts, as at Bisotun and Naqsh-e Rustam, a medium for spiritual transition like the Towers of Silence, and an instrument for auditory perfection in the Qapu Palace. We've decoded messages of power etched in gold beneath palace foundations and messages of hope painted in light upon a mosque floor. This is the incredible diversity of the Persian intellectual spirit, a refusal to see architecture as merely functional, but to treat every structure as an opportunity to embed meaning, to converse with the cosmos, to speak to the future, and to explore the deepest questions of power, faith, and humanity's place in the natural world. These monuments challenge us to become more curious travelers, more perceptive observers of our shared human history. The next time you stand before an ancient site, anywhere in the world, let this journey be an invitation to look beyond its obvious beauty and scale. Ask the quieter questions. Why is it oriented this particular way? What does its geometry suggest? Who was it truly built for? And what were they trying to say, not just to their contemporaries, but to us centuries later? The greatest secret these places hold is that they are not silent ruins. They are waiting to be read by anyone willing to listen. We've wandered through grand imperial propaganda and intimate poetic gardens, so now we turn the final question over to you. Which of these hidden messages resonated most deeply? Was it the sheer political genius of Darius's multilingual billboard at Bisotun, the heartbreaking communal resilience encoded in the underground city of Naqshband, or perhaps the serene, timeless wisdom of a Persian garden like Finn, modeling paradise itself? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's continue this fascinating conversation about the unseen layers of history. Thank you for joining this exploration. Until our next journey into the mysteries of the past, keep looking closer.